Today on Homeworthy, we're taking you inside 4 of our favorite beach homes, each led by designers with a strong point of view. In Byron Bay, Australia, interior designer Luella Gill welcomes us into her light-filled Queenslander, shaped by her background in furniture design and a love of collected character-driven spaces.
And I have a lot of these old boards. They're artists' boards that artists use and kind of practice on, basically. But I've found a lot of them over the years in vintage stores, and I just love them. The colours are just, I mean, it's a lot about the Australian countryside, but the colours are just really beautiful. I love them.
On the North Fork of Long Island in New York, Dan Mazzarini, former director of store design at Ralph Lauren, opens his coastal cottage, where polished design meets a relaxed approach to beach living.
These little rabbits, Andy and I bought on a trip in Provincetown. They're from On Center Gallery, and the artist actually uses found materials from the ocean in making these kind of fanciful creatures, and so I thought they were kind of fun. This kind of feels like playful and spirited. Linens, we keep everything easy.
In North Carolina, Morgan Hood shares her waterfront retreat, known for its thoughtful use of pattern, texture, and her signature textiles.
One of the things that I first pulled when I was designing this beach house is this incredible seashell wallpaper by John Darian. I have fallen in love with it, and it just, again, makes the space and ties the whole house together. My whole color scheme was basically built off of this wallpaper, and I can't get enough of it every time I see it.
And in Newport Beach, California, designer Casey Hill walks us through her restored 1940s bungalow, balancing original charm with bold modern updates.
We kind of incorporated some found artwork from antique shops in Santa Barbara and upstate New York, as well as some kind of fun beachy items like this rope-covered surfboard.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. And be sure to check out our new show with interior designer Martin Lawrence Bullard, streaming exclusively on Homeworthy Plus.
You don't really know a city until you step inside the homes of the people who live there. Architecture as telling as accents, decor as delectable as local dishes, personalities who define the places they call home.
Listen, I like organized chaos.
I'm Martin Lawrence Bullard, and in Live, Love and Decorate, I'm taking you beyond the public squares and into the private spaces at the heart of my favorite cities.
I thought I'd come home.
We'll travel from Los Angeles to London, Paris to Istanbul, and even beyond. Knocking on the doors of my dearest friends, bursting with style and stories that go way beyond design.
For you, I will do anything, my darling.
Can't wait to see, I'm so excited. Each home reveals more than just a city. It reveals the spirit. This show isn't about facades. It's about what's inside. It's a celebration of the passion and the personality that transforms a city's houses into true homes. Welcome to Live, Love and Decorate.
Hello, Homeworthy. I'm Luella. This is my little house in Bungalow in Australia. Come on in. Hi, my name is Luella Gill. I'm an interior designer, and this is my house in Bungalow in Australia. I found this house when I was up in Byron on holiday. I was leaving to drive back to Sydney and thought, I'll just go and have a little look. I wasn't thinking at all about moving up to Byron. And the house was so sweet, and an incredible older lady owned it, who was Miss Bondi 1957. And she was absolutely hilarious. And she opened the door, let me in, and I literally was like, oh my God, this is really cute. And it was very busy, full of furniture, and there were lots more rooms. But I bought it and started to play with it, and it became, a really fun project. I'm originally English, so grew up in and around really interesting houses. So I love all the older homes in Australia. It's a classic Queenslander, which is an Australian house built of timber and it's raised up off the ground. In Queensland, it's for the draft to get the wind coming through and keep the house cool. But we sit about 2 meters off the ground, and they tend to be really character homes with lovely old windows and doors, lots and lots of timber. And I walked in and was like, oh, this is really, really sweet. This is the main living area. We've got 2 big, very squishy, comfy chairs that are Maker and Son, which is a beautiful friend of mine in London. The artwork through the whole house is a collection of years and years and years of collecting, but mainly from friends. So this piece and 2 or 3 other pieces in here are David Band, who was a lovely old Scottish friend who's not with us anymore. But yeah, all the artwork through the house tends to be people that are friends, and we end up swapping furniture or bits and pieces. And each surface is covered with lots of little things that I love. So, you know, books, color is obviously a big thing. And then even down to something like this cabinet, which is just full of little bits and pieces that I love. And then that's the TV hidden away. So it becomes not about a room focused on the TV. It just hides away. But that's a really old piece that was from a pharmacy. And it's literally this deep for little bottles and things. And I've filled it with lots of bits and pieces. The chairs are Spanish chairs. They're one of my favourite thing ever. The sofa is one I designed when we had a furniture business, and the table, actually. The alcoves either side of the fireplace, I put the shelves in there when we moved in here, and I still haven't got around to it, but I was going to do cupboards below them, but maybe that'll happen, maybe not. Lighting is something that I really love as well. So these are old industrial lights. They're from Belgium, I think, and I tend to always use funny old lights. I need to show you the cow, which is a very precious thing to me. I bought it from somebody who explained that he had sculpted this cow and cast it and made it himself. It then turned out that he was kind of fabricating a bit of a story there. And I met a friend who had exactly the same cow, which actually came from, they used to have them in on the counter in milk bars. So wherever a certain brand of milk was sold, or local milk or whatever, they had these iron cows sitting on the general store counter. So it's not handmade as I thought, but it's still very precious. And it wears a nice little, it's got its own little necklace with the teddy bear on it. As much as it's a really old house, the fireplace is actually strangely not that old and not very solid, but has a wood-burning stove in it. But yeah, it's just an old mantelpiece that was here when I bought the house. And the lady I bought the house from had already painted it white. And I was going to rip it all out and do a big timber thing. And then I was like, well, I actually really like it. I like the kind of old detail in it and the fact that it just disappears into the whiteness of the walls. I'm very big on colour, but I've kept all the walls in here white. And then all the bathrooms that run off the house, they're all fully saturated in colour. So you go from simple kind of white palette with lots of colourful artwork to bathrooms that are just completely saturated in colour, which I really love. The lantern is made of canvas and is from a lovely friend of mine called Sabella Court. And she had a business called Society Inc., which is no longer, which is a bit sad. But she was making all these beautiful lanterns, and I took a bit of a punt going for the really big one in a house that's really little, but it works. And it's really softening when you come in through the front door, especially in the evening. If that's on, it's just like a huge moon glowing. So it's very cute. This is a flood measure. This came with me from London. I bought this at Camden Market in London when I was maybe 20. And it's travelled from London to Melbourne, then to Sydney, and now to Byron. And the whole thing just, I don't know, I just love the old weirdness of it. But yeah, it's an old flood measure. And this I really, really love. I have no idea who it's by. There's a name on it here, which I think says Jacobs. But I absolutely love everything about this artwork. I love that it doesn't have a frame. I love the colours and the geometry of it. That one is very special to me. So my thing with surrounding myself with things that make me remember where I've been and I've got all of these little bits and pieces in here. They've all got little stories. This was a present from one of my best friends in London. I think when I'd lived in Australia for about 10 years, it arrived in the post, and I absolutely love it. These were peace signs that we made through our furniture business, and there's one on the front of the house as well. That's a funny little rusty fairy for the garden. And then I know I've got a thing about funny old violins, broken things. I don't know if you can see in here, but there's it's like a seed pod from a tree, and then a friend of mine, Josh Yeldham, who's an amazing artist. This is one of his up here. That was a little one that he did for me for my birthday one year. But he's taken the seed pod and he's cast it. So that's a little plaster cast of a seed pod, which is very, very sweet. And yeah, all these things, half of them actually came over from London. They're all funny little bits and pieces, these little bottles and from all over. Oh, and my little car. And I have a blue one out the front, but full size, that I can actually get in and drive. When I first bought the house, there were really big plants kind of shrouding it at the front that were making it really dark. So I cut all those down and I opened it up. The one thing I wanted to do was open it up to feel really light and airy. So this whole area kind of comes round into an L-shaped room. And the kitchen there was a doorway here. And we took all the walls out and put a beam in up here. So it was very much about opening it up. And then both the bedrooms had verandas off them with enclosed windows. So I turned both of the verandas into en-suites. So my bedroom at the front has a really big shower, which is the front of the veranda, which is closed in with cedar shutters. And then a bath and, the whole ensuite in there. And then the second bedroom in the house has its own bathroom as well. So when we bought the house, we opened all this up. This was, there were walls here, and we wanted it to just be a really nice open space. And when I say we, that was myself and my two daughters. I always put a rope swing into any house I do, and that becomes a focal point for if kids walk into the house, they jump onto it. The island bench has plumbing straight through to the floor, so the sink's in there. And this is probably my favourite piece in the house. It's an old workbench from Belgium, I think. And that's from a company based in Melbourne, but they were here as well. But they're now just in Melbourne. But yeah, that's a very special piece. So it's a bit tricky to open, but I kind of like the clunkiness of it. It works. So when we opened the house up and put a beam in, as we were about to finish it all up, I was like, oh my God, that's a great place to put a big shelf for big bowls, platters and things. And then it's become a place where lots of artwork has ended up. And then as we go all the way round, Babe Rainbow, which is a postcard because I didn't buy the real one because it was a little bit too expensive, but I do love it. And then this is by my dearest friend, Rachel Castle. So that was a birthday present one year. And then all my funny little paraphernalia that I always end up putting everywhere. Little things that mean things. So drawing the kitchen up when I bought the house, I didn't want any overhead cupboards. There's a cute little window here. I didn't want to lose that. There's a window here. So we set the oven in the middle. Then I have the lovely Fisher & Paykel little drawer fridges in here, which are great. And then dishwasher here. And then bins in here. And that gave me a really nice basis of just simple timber. And then we repeated the shelf up here, so bits and pieces up there. And then the counter always ends up with a lot of stuff on it, but it's all kind of useful stuff. It changes every month or so. I suddenly go, I think I'm going to put blue things on here now, or I think this time we're going to have all black, or so that's kind of constantly evolving. But the table in the center, this, as much as we've got a dining room, we always end up, even when I have lots of people over for dinner, we always end up sitting all the way around this table because it's that thing where the kitchen is the hub and you always end up in the kitchen at parties. The floor in the kitchen is really nice old boards. The floor at the front of the house was really lovely old boards as well, but the lady who had the house had already painted them white. And I was about to strip them all off, but I decided that the house would feel too dark if I actually went back to them being dark. And I hum and har about that sometimes. I think if you've got enough kind of maybe light furniture, you can still make that work. But these boards were really, really sweet. So I literally didn't touch them. We gave them a really, really light sand. And then the rest of the house we just painted white, which then works really well with furniture sitting on it. But yeah, these ones, they were really sweet. And it defined the kitchen nicely. This is an artwork by Mark Schaller, who is an artist based in Melbourne. He was part of something called the Raw Group, and they're a group of artists that all studied together. And it's made using a chainsaw. And he has the most incredible use of colour. I absolutely love the colours he's thrown in here. They're gorgeous. And then, I'm quite keen on yellow. That's an Eames chair. So I already had the walnut one, and then they came out with a yellow. This piece is a turning, it's solid timber. That's from Mark Tuckey. That's a really nice solid piece of cypress with all my rusty things on it. And more yellow up here with the light. That's an old industrial lampshade that I found. I think it was in some funny old shop in Castlemaine in Victoria. And yeah, being fond of yellow, I was like, that'll find place. I had that for years before I actually used it. My background is I studied furniture design in England. So I have a degree in furniture design, three-dimensional design. And when I went to move to London, I worked for Terence Conran. And that brought me to Melbourne because they were opening up a Conran shop in Melbourne, and they needed somebody from the London store to kind of oversee and make sure it's presented in the same way. So I moved to Melbourne and met this instant family of incredible people in the design world. I didn't stay there very long. The shop didn't stay open very long, very sadly, but I stayed in Australia. I started working for myself, doing work with event management, designing marquees for the races and things, and then started doing more and more interior design work. Then when I met my ex-husband, he had a furniture store, and within a week I'd gone in and he'd literally given me carte blanche to go, right, what do you think? We culled 2/3 of it, got rid of all the dark timbers, designed a whole new range of furniture and rebranded it. So it used to be called Ancient Modes, and we rebranded it to his name, which was Mark Tuckey. And it was a business very much based on building solid timber, real timber, not veneers. So I did that and took over the creative of that for about 10 years. And then when we split, he kept the business, and the children bounced between the two of us, and that's always worked really well. And I got back into more interior design, where I still do furniture within it, but interior design. And that was down in Sydney, and then moved up here to Byron about 7 years ago. So this is the dining room. This is another artwork that I really, really love. It's a David Band, and I've got a few of his works. But it's one of those pieces where it's really, really simple, and people go, oh, well, couldn't I have done that? Yeah, but you didn't. And it's so beautiful, and the colours to me, I really, really love. So yeah, it's a bit special, that one. This is one of the first things I designed when I was with my ex-husband, and that still sells at Mark Tuckey. It's called the Tripod Dining Table, and that's in solid oak. And this is another favourite thing. This is a Nana Ditzel. This is the original hanging egg chair, and loads of different companies have copied it. But it's, I don't know, I love the simplicity of it. The shape of it's just perfect. When my children are here, literally, there is always somebody sitting in this. You can't find them. You're in the kitchen, you can't find them. It's because they're in the chair and they swing around. This is a Miffy light. Miffy was something I loved as a child, and my daughters really loved Miffy. So when I saw a massive Miffy light, I was like, oh my God, that's great. Another funny violin with no strings on it. This is an artwork by my friend Rachel Castle. I got when I was at art college. A friend of mine, it was his degree showpiece, and I swapped this for a piece of furniture I'd made. And so we swapped works that we'd made for our degree show. Little funny top hat. These are all funny little sculptures that I made with a friend of mine, Kimberly, who you go over and she'll just have all this stuff out on the table and she'll go, right, we're doing a making class, and she'll just get everybody making things. And they're funny little creatures. The skylights in here really, really make a massive difference to the level of light in here. And they're just literally clear versions of the corrugated iron of the normal roof. But it makes such a massive difference. Without them, it's super dark at the back here. So when I drew up the kitchen, I didn't want to lose these really sweet windows that look out the back to the big trees. So I was like, oh, so I can't do a bench there, but I need more storage. So I put in a low bench seat, which actually gets used all the time, especially if people are over for dinner. And these are all drawers with pots and pans in. So it actually makes this work quite well, even though, and we got to keep the windows, which I really, really love. And then out the back, you've got the creek running at the back with these massive trees. So even though you're in town, you feel like you're in the middle of nowhere, which is kind of handy. I think my style is very much led by growing up in England. It's quite eclectic. I love bringing old pieces into the home. I love that flavour of things that you've lived with, things that you've collected, and that your home becomes a story telling how you've lived, where you've lived. So, I mean, I've got things in the house that I brought over with me from London, and everywhere I look, there are little things. My children can tell the stories. I mean, they're grown up now, they're 18 and 19, but they know every single thing in the house. They know, oh, that came from Camden in London. That came from when Mama was at college. That came from blah, blah, blah. So everything tells a story, and I think I very much put that into my work. I love a home to feel comfortable and cozy, and that's exactly what I create for people. Homes that they can leap on a sofa and it's not going to break. They can put coffee cups down. They don't have to worry about a ring mark on a piece of furniture from a mug. Adds to the character. It's all about patina and layering, and so I get very involved in all of that. And essentially, I kind of worked out a long time ago that I'm just a natural born nester, and what I love doing is what I do for a job, so it's kind of not like working. Lewis is a very special dog. He's not really a dog. He's a human in dog clothes. Lewis came from the pound, and we can't understand how he was left at the pound, because he is the best, easiest, most loving dog that I've had dogs all my life, and he's by far the easiest. And he's Irish Wolfhound, cross Kelpie with a little bit of fish, because he loves to swim underwater. He'll dive into a swimming pool and corkscrew all the way down to the bottom, and is always the life and soul of the party. When there's a swimming pool, everybody just stands there watching Lewis, don't they? Yes. Yes. This is my bedroom. This is the main bedroom. And this is a bed I designed when we had Mark Tuckey. A nice little four-poster in Carrie Pine. And then this was the veranda. And when I bought the place, I turned this into a bathroom. So you've got an old tin bath, which is great and very cozy and comfy, and a shearer's desk as the vanity. And then in here, this is the shower, which was the front of the veranda. And you can open up the shutters. I don't tend to open up the ones at the front because that's onto the street. But the ones at the side, you can have them open looking out to the trees when you're having a shower. I pulled off the old handles that were on the wardrobe doors. So these were here when I bought the house, which was great because they're super simple and straightforward. And I just did double holes and threaded rope through them. They're just nice and straightforward and easy, and they felt right for the house, which is quite nice and low-key. This artwork is a bit of a favourite. I love the colours. I only got this a couple of years ago. It was literally nothing. It had a horrible big frame around it, and it's a bit damaged, but I thought the colours were beautiful, and once I pulled the frame off, it's like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. And then a friend of mine walked in who's South African, and she said, oh my God, it's South African. It's a South African building. So it's kind of nice to kind of work out where it was from. This one's by my very clever daughter, Indy. That's Kurt Cobain. That was when she was studying, getting her painting skills honed before she went to art school, which she starts very soon. And the one up here, the white one, that is just one that I did. It's like, but that's the house I lived in Daylesford, which belonged to my friend Alex, who had Maker and Son. But yeah, it was a funny little house that was an old barn on the top of a hill with a path down to the dam. This one's lovely, actually. This is a company called Third Draw Down, and they're tea towels, but they're tea towels as frameable artworks. So they all have a limited edition number on them, and they work with different artists, and they have a really big range. I think you can still order them online, but they're beautiful. I've got quite a few that I really, really love, and you just box frame them. Cute. These are lamps that I use a lot. They're Artemidi. They're the Ptolomeo bedside lamp, and they come in all different forms. There's a floor standing lamp. There's pendant lamps, but the bedsides are really, really nice. They do a wall mount one as well that you can move around. But yeah, these are lovely, and they give a really nice soft light. And I love the fact that as much as they're kind of a modern light, they're aluminium, they sit in an old environment really beautifully and just feel quite clean. When anybody walks through my front door, I want them to feel comfortable. And that's about the space that they walk into. And that's about who I am as a person. I'm really all about empathy and trying to make people feel comfortable. It's very important to me. But it's very strong in my home. I love people to walk in and feel comfortable. And it's definitely a house that people walk into and feel very cozy. It's a house that children really, really love. And I always, any house I do, I always put a rope swing. So there's a rope swing in the kitchen. And kids run into this house and they literally see the rope swing and they jump on it. And all of a sudden, they're having a great time. Mum and Dad are chatting away and everybody's got their own little comfortable spot. And there's spaces everywhere to kind of nestle and sit. And I think that's very much me wanting people to just be comfortable. And yeah, I think it all works together. This is my younger daughter Indy's bedroom, although it's looking surprisingly not Indy-like at the moment because she's about to go away to college, so she's taken most of her stuff with her. So this is quite pared back and tidy for an Indy room. But this is a staircase that I had when I was in London. I bought it in London and brought it with me with all my stuff when I came over. And that's always been in one of our houses as a little bookcase. When we bought the house, the girls wanted me to make a little fake door at the top so that they could tell their friends that we could go up there. This painting above the bed it's a David Bromley, who was an old friend. And I really love his series where it's the old Boys Own annuals. They're really, really pretty. They're really sweet. Indy has a bathroom in here with a tiny, tiny little zinc bath, which she absolutely loves. And the toilet's built in, so you kind of can't see it. And then this whole unit, this is the old boards from the old veranda that we repurposed and ended up making this because it was all about trying to use this nice pink piece of timber that was just a find at the side of the road that I thought was really lovely. There's another artwork in here by Rachel Castle, my dearest friend. The tiles in here, I used to specify tiles from a company called Gitana when I lived in Sydney. And when I moved up here, I went to see them because they're based up here. And I'm now, one of my best friends up here is Sonia, who has Gitana. And she brings tiles in from all over. So these are a new encaustic tile. So they're a square concrete tile. But she does the most incredible antique tiles as well. And I just get obsessed and get really detail-y in my bathrooms with using 5 or 6 different tiles and different angles. And I get very excited about tiles. Lots and lots of tiles, lots of layers. And I often use the really old antique ones, which are really beautiful. This is one of my all-time favourite vintage posters. One of my best friends in Melbourne has a company called Vintage Posters Only. And he goes to Paris a couple of times a year and buys the most incredible old vintage posters. And then he backs them onto canvas. And my uncle is one of my favourites. Amazing film, but also the prettiest little poster. So that's been living in Indy's room, and she didn't take it with her, luckily. So, but yeah, very fond of that. And I've always had quite a few posters in the house, but yeah. This is just a funny old chest of drawers that I can't even think where I found it. It was in a vintage store somewhere, and Indy was really keen for some more storage in her room. And it's just such a pretty color on the top. I think I got it locally. I can't remember, but it's one of those things I found a few years ago and came home with in the back of the car. These are pigeonhole units, and they're, again, from Mark Tuckey when we had that business. This is a globe that was from Camden Market, again, in London, and came over in a container with all my stuff from England. And they're just a few old textiles. And I think that flag is for a company called Pony Rider, who do a lot of interesting kind of flags. And it got a bit bleached in the sun, but to me that kind of adds to it. It's given it a bit more interest. I think my favourite thing about this house, I love that the minute I bought it, I put a stable door on the front so that when somebody knocks on the front door, I just open the top and say hello. I love that even though it's a really small house, it feels light and airy. It's got quite nice high ceilings. And I love that I'm right in town in Bungalow, so it's 50 steps across to get a coffee from all the shops and the cafes. But out the back, I have enormous trees in the creek, and I could be in the middle of the countryside and have the peace and quiet at the back. I think the location of the house is really important for me, as well as the character of the home and all the timber and the detail in the quirks. The quirks are nice. Hello. This is the main bathroom, as in if anybody comes over, this is the bathroom they use. There were, when I bought the house, there was a doorway through to the bedroom and this doorway as well. So we closed it off, which gave space for a nice vanity. Kept the lovely old windows because they're so sweet, and the colour basically then dictated what would happen in the bathroom. And initially I painted them green as well, but it kind of didn't work because this shows up so beautifully against the white. So that ended up being that. This is a funny old piece I found down in Sydney and had it for a while. And then when we did this house, I was like, oh my God, that is the perfect vanity for here. And there used to be a company in Byron that did a lot of concrete sinks, and they do every colour of the rainbow. So green sink in here. And yeah, one of my favourite wall colours in here. It's called Silent Sage. And I have a lot of these old boards. They're artists' boards that artists use and kind of practice on, basically. But I've found a lot of them over the years in vintage stores, and I just love them. The colours are just, I mean, it's a lot about the Australian countryside, but the colours are just really beautiful. I love them. This is another David Band, and this was from his funeral. It was the card that was given out at his wake, which was really sweet, but it's kind of hilarious. He's drinking and peeing at the same time. The light was actually here when I bought the house, and I intended to change it because I had other ones that I wanted to use, but I couldn't bring myself to get rid of it because it's so pretty and it goes so well with the garden. So big tick to Jan, who did the house. She did a lot, I think, before. She maintained a lot of things and I think she found all these old windows. I think she added layers to the old bits of the house, which is really lovely. So well done, Jan. I think any home that is made up of layers, be it how you layer, the materials that you put into it, the materials that it's made of, I think to walk into a brand new house that is very basic in terms of plaster walls and concrete floors, that can be in its own way, in a minimal way, very soulful, depending on how it's decorated and nurtured. But there's a lot of new houses built today that seem really bland and feel like they're not built with love. And I think these older houses feel so ingrained with the detail of the old patina and all the different materials and the sweet old windows and that to me gives the house its own personality and its sense of kind of soul. Home to me means a space where I feel safe and I want other people to feel safe. It's a place to return to nestle, to nest, and to feel nurtured by and wrapped up by. And I think that's where, when I create homes, I create all these spaces that do feel very cozy and comfortable. It's something very innate in me. And I think I grew up in a house that felt like it looked after me. I had a very loving home life as a child, and I lived in a thatched cottage in England. It was 300 years old. You walked in the front. I had a stable door there, but it was big and heavy, big old oak door. I think I grew up feeling really safe and cozy at home, and maybe that's had a big impact on me that I haven't really picked up on before. But yeah, it's in me.
Today, interior designer Dan Mazzarini welcomes us into his charming beach cottage on Long Island's North Fork. As the former director of store design at Ralph Lauren, Dan knows a thing or two about striking the balance between sophisticated style and lived-in charm. Clean lines meet collected objects, creating beautiful vignettes that feel personal and full of story.
When it comes to knick-knackery, I really lean into my fancy hoarder tendency, which is buy it and you'll find the place for it later.
But despite being a peaceful escape from Manhattan's bustling energy, Dan can't help but bring a little bit of the city to his North Fork home.
Our friend Steve, his dad was the head bartender at Sardi's in Manhattan for like 40 years. And so early in our tenure on the North Fork, Steve and Elizabeth would have us over. They would call when we were like driving out, and they'd say, "What's your drink order?" And so anything you could think of, Steve would try to make. And so now they come over here for sunset, and we love making cocktails together. It's just kind of part of the fun of this kitchen.
Designed for entertaining, welcoming friends, and celebrating the ocean views, this home captures the magic of the East End and the joy of sharing it with others.
We really want this to feel like, in my phrase, like the full fantasy, right? And so whether it's Ina Garten or Nancy Myers or like pick your favorite sort of coastal grandma, for me, this house needs to feel like a big cashmere sweater.
To watch Dan's full episode ad-free, scan the QR code or click join below.
Homeworthy, nice to see you. I'm Dan Mazzarini of Mazzarini & Co. Welcome to our home on the North Fork. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. I'm Allison Kenworthy, the founder of Homeworthy, and we take you inside the world's most beautifully decorated homes and introduce you to the brilliant people who live there.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Liz Lang. Welcome to Grey Gardens.
Click the join button below to access all of our latest episodes ad-free and watch extended cuts of this and other homes, opening the doors to new rooms and exclusive content featuring our beloved hosts.
I can't wait to see. I'm so excited.
And if you're looking to shop items inspired by this and other Homeworthy tastemakers, be sure to use the product links below or scan the QR code on screen to find fabulous furniture, coffee table books, and accessories that can transform your house into a home.
Hi, I'm Dan Mazzarini of Mazzarini & Co. and welcome to the North Fork. So our North Fork casita, as I call it, is really like two Monopoly houses put together. Lovingly, you're looking at the room. This is pretty much our living space, dining space, party space, holiday space. And then over to the side, we have 3 little bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. It's kind of everything we need and not an inch more. When Andy and I were looking for houses, we've been on the North Fork for, I think, 10 years now. Our last house was very sweet and a little bit older than this, but we manifested and we said, we're looking for a view of the water, a pool, and a fireplace. And this house had the view and the fireplace, so we put in the pool, which was like a totally arduous process. But beyond that, we love that this little casita has held us through a lot of big changes in the world and is everything we need and not a square inch more. This home is 1978, which is a great vintage. And one of the things I think I say that about is Andy loves a house with a dry basement. So I love a big old house. What you get in the 1970s are big concrete basements. And so the outside of the house really matched that when we got it. It wasn't beautiful, in a word. It was, I described it as like a caca colored house. Take that for what it is. And so I think, the vintage of the house really was reflected in the flavor on the outside. But once we kind of got our hands on it, we just wanted this really sweet seaside casita. And so a lot of white paint goes a long way. And so now our house is white with black shutters and kind of this sweet little seaside vision. So what was once very 1970s, we've tried to sort of like bring it a little more current. This is our living room / great room / kind of everything room. And I think, my recipe to any kind of seaside entertaining is keep it easy. So starting underfoot, we use indoor-outdoor rugs in a lot of our projects. It works really well here because whether it's our dog, who we love, our friends who we love, but they love red wine, we really tried to keep entertaining as easy as possible here. So underfoot, we love a polyamide indoor-outdoor. We use them in all our projects. Next, our sofas. We've got twin white sofas. Now, deep in a global pandemic, Andy and I sort of like laid here and watched TV a lot. So I was like, they're sofas / coffins. Great news, they ended up being sofas. But I say this because it was, what do you do with white sofas and how do you make them durable? For us, everything in the house was white at the time, so they're Sunbrella. I've taken them, I've OxyCleaned them. We really made them as easy and carefree as possible, so you too can have a white sofa. These chairs actually were a great score. There's a store, I love shopping locally on the North Fork, and these are from a little shop called White Flower Farmhouse. Lori there is she has a great eye and she's a great shopkeeper. These were really crusty dusty. I like crusty dusty, but these were like really bad. But my painter spent hours kind of stripping them and painting them. They're actually painted the same color as the doors in the house, and they were $100 for the pair. So this was like my primo North Fork find for sure. I like pairs of things, and so from chairs to tables, I think when we entertain, we usually have like platters of cheese and snacks and things for everybody. So these two tables came individually, but in pairing them up, it kind of becomes a second island since we don't have an island in our kitchen. And so this really, it's full of shit right now. But basically, we use this all the time when we entertain. So we kind of smush stuff around. Speaking of entertaining, being in hospitality, we design a lot of hotels. And one of the phrases I learned was this phrase, flame program. What is a flame program? It's basically going from day to night and lighting a fireplace or candles. And so this is not an unrealistic amount of candles for our family to have lit basically every night that we're here. It's not a seance, but I think Andy in particular really likes, we went on a trip to Copenhagen and he's like, everything is hygge, hygge, hygge. How do you say it? Something like that. Anyway, lots of candles for all of our tables, and I think it really complements the sunset. So as the sun is setting behind us, we'll kind of light everything, and so as our guests are coming back inside, it's kind of like this unexpected, beautiful, bountiful glow. When it comes to knick-knackery, I really lean into my fancy hoarder tendency, which is buy it, and you'll find the place for it later. Case in point, kind of all of these things have been collected by Andy and I through the years. So tramp art, and this has thumbtacks in it. There's a couple of great antique stores in and around the North Fork that we love to frequent, and so Beal and Bell is one of our favorites. This tramp art came from there. There's a box. These, I don't even know what these are. Viewers, please let us know what the heck are these things, but whether they're candlesticks or for spinning yarn, it's something in there. I just like them for the tone and kind of the height that it adds this sculptural bit to the table. But for us, I think objects, this is really kind of the still life that's ever evolving in our home. So your fancy hoarder Dan, your friend Dan, loves to collect, and so this will never be the same way twice. So other items that we found, some we found and some have been gifts. These kind of crazy pigeon things are actually by a local sculptor. They were part of an estate sale and showed up at our friend Nathaniel's shop. And so Andy's well-trained. He called me and he FaceTimed and he was like, am I allowed to buy these weird birds? And I was like, buy the birds, who cares? So they live here as part of our menagerie. This kind of wild Portugal ceramic is a gift from our friend Elizabeth. We were looking for something like it. and she gifted it to us for Christmas. So thanks for the crab box, Elizabeth Tallerman. And maybe, I don't think we're the first to have, but I think if you're gonna live at the beach, having anchor andirons feel like a must-have item. And so we kind of scouted local spaces for a number of years before we found these. They were definitely brassier before we got them, but we really use our fireplace. It's wood burning, and so the patina on them is real. And so we light a fire in the fireplace basically from September until April. I'm lucky enough to work with a lot of artists over the projects that we have at Mazzarini & Co. And so a friend of mine, Michael Hildebrandt, is a beautiful illustrator and painter. He did this piece. Turns out it's of his ex-boyfriend, who knew, but he advertised that, so I'm not like, spoiler alert. But when I saw it, I was like, oh, we're kind of looking for this seaside casita meets like a little bit of sexy sailor. And this is a piece that I bought from him to kind of fulfill that fantasy. I mean, pair that with a boat in a box, come on, this writes itself, right? So our builder actually told us that this cabinet, which we got from a local store, maybe was a costume cabinet for traveling theater people. I have no idea what that means, but essentially the top comes off and the bottom comes off and the whole thing almost collapses. But when your kitchen is as small as our kitchen is here, and when you like to use as many dishes as I do, this becomes, I'm letting you in, you're on the inside, this becomes like our backup pantry. And so whether it's serving stuff or pool stuff or even things that we've sort of found and bought at auction, this, what was once costumes is now tabletop, and so this is kind of our backup pantry for the house. These kind of crazy magnifiers, they're candles, they're not electrified, but they sat at my desk for a couple of years until we got this space. And I think, you can put candles and kind of vases all over the house, but for us, lighting these on the wall actually gets this really kind of romantic dappled light all over the wall too. So last but not least in this, is it a tableau? Should we say that? Up above, collections of things. And I think this really speaks to how I have collected a lot through the years. So the basket was bought on a shopping trip in Los Angeles at Big Daddy Antiques. I have no idea what it is or where it came from, but the texture and the height, I was like, I love the sense of sort of scale that this would add to really any vignette. The tiny house up here, everybody asks, they're like, what is this house? I don't know. So let's hypothesize together. It is either a model, an architectural model. I sort of think it was for like pigeons or birds somehow, like maybe they kind of lived in there because on the North Fork there's a lot of this. So somewhere in there, we found it locally. It was kind of one of those things. I'm like, let's get it. What's the worst that happens? And now it kind of lives up here, and it's a conversation piece for sure. So this table, Andy and I actually bought at the Paris Flea Market. It was our old dining table in our Greenport house. The leaves, actually, the whole thing flips out, and these are little pieces that sort of extend, so you can make this an actual dining table. But this is one of those things that have a lot of sentimental value because we brought it house to house and we've had birthdays and dinners and holidays on it. So this is a fun one. It kind of lives at this console now. A local merchant made this mirror. It's actually like a reused farm piece. And so I loved just the galvanized texture, but we saw it in a store of all places, and a clothing store for the salting. They were out here on the North Fork last summer and the summer before. And this big mirror was in their showroom, and I went to the owner and I was like, can I buy the mirror? I didn't buy any clothes, sorry guys, but I'm interested in them. But the mirror has a great house here on the North Fork. And other pieces, this is a piece of Italian ceramic that we bought. These came from a local florist that we liked a lot. This crazy little dog is, it's a doorstop we bought locally, and Andy's mom is kind of this rusty little dog. She named him Rusty, and so now everybody asks how Rusty is when they're coming to visit us. So, but from sort of buffet to dining table, I think we love to entertain, we cook a lot, and we wanted this to feel casual. So I went to my visual vocabulary of chairs and dining spaces that I've loved through the years, and stay with me. Do you remember Will Truman's apartment in Will and Grace? He had director's chairs. They were slip covered. And I was like, that's what I want. And so we ended up buying these director's chairs online. I had covers made. I didn't like the covers, but we kept the director's chairs. So they're also white sunbrella. We've bleached them. We've thrown them in OxyClean. But this paired with a really big round table, we sit up to 8 people around here. And we've added card tables on for the holidays. It's It's definitely a casual setting, but lives sort of in that cinematic way that I wanted to approach the house. It's all topped off by this light. I actually designed this light. It's just a paper shade with a leather whip stitch on it, but we have a vendor who I've never met. Like, do you get this sometimes? Like vendors who you don't know, but you talk to all the time. The vendor's name is Jack of All Shades. That's pretty good, right? Jack of all shades made this huge lampshade for me. And the first one came in and it wasn't big enough. I was like, it needs to be bigger. And so now everybody hits their head on it when they stand up like it's a crazy piñata. But it's, for me, I love a paper or a linen shade. I just think it's really glowy and ambient. And so whether it's a dinner party or cocktails or just watching a sunset, we always sneak in and like turn on the lights. And this shade really sort of sets the scene for the evening. This renovation actually was twofold. We bought the house, we closed in December of 2019, and very quickly came in. All of the walls were brown, sort of barnwood. The floors were all carpeted, like the original 1978 sculpted carpet. And we pulled everything up. So in a fit of DIY, we pulled up all the carpet to reveal all the plywood floors. And I had a full designer fantasy that Andy was like, babe, you do the thing, which was paint the whole house white. I meant doors, doorknobs, hinges, countertops, everything got painted white, to the point that my painter was like, are you okay? But it all worked out, except that the world had very different plans for everybody in 2020. And so we ended up moving here full-time in March, only three months after we closed, into an all-white house. Cut to me and Andy at the time, emptying our New York City kitchen, showing up like to an empty kitchen here, having to load everything in. We had to make the beds the first night, like we didn't live here yet, and we moved in full-time. So Renovation 1 was an all-white house in the middle of winter, where you can imagine a white sky of winter reflected off the water. The sky was white, the water was white, the yard was white with frost, the house is all white. Andy was like, I feel like I'm in a straitjacket, babe. We need to like do something different here. And so renovation number 2, when it came up 2 years later, was a more colorful take on the North Fork. And so we pulled in colors from the greenery that we got to see for a couple more seasons, colors of terracotta and things that just really felt warm and homier to us. And so renovation 2 was my take on a more colorful point of view of the North Fork. One of my favorite things about this house, specifically kind of how compact it is that there's windows kind of on all of the sides. And so the way that this house is sited, the sun comes up over the kitchen and over this bay window, kind of around the side, and then we get a beautiful sunset out the back. But this is kind of a fun fact. Before our official renovation, there was no window where that window is now. And so this is like the sunniest elevation of the house all day. And so I was talking to the builder and I'm like, what if we put a window where a window ought to be? And so that's where that window kind of came from. But the kitchen itself was a mix of two things. Number one, aesthetics. I kind of wanted this country kitchen. And so flat front drawers mixed with beadboard, a little bit of this detail, certainly like unlacquered brass, things that would patina. That all kind of was really helpful. The reality is we used the heck out of this thing. And so we wanted spaces that were durable enough. Cue these soapstone countertops. Now, some people think soapstone is challenging. For me, this has been an actual dream come true. It lives like granite. And so we, don't tell anyone, we like cut right on it. You can leave lemons on it. You can kind of do anything. So acid and etching and cutting and all those things, it doesn't show anything. And so this has been, I mean, Andy's like, don't ever bring me another countertop, like it's not gonna happen. And so soapstone is definitely the way to go. It is a living material, which means that you have to oil it if you want it to sort of maintain its dark color. But for us, I like when it sort of gets brighter and you start to pick up some of these green tones. So a little bit aesthetic, a lot of function. We packed a lot into this kitchen. Speaking of packing a lot into a kitchen, cue collections. So these little cabinets, obviously we're not enough to hold all of our things, but I'm in love with the splatterware from a company called March. They have the most beautiful store in San Francisco. Sadly, they're closing their doors the end of November, so if you missed it, you snooze, you lose. But splatterware is sort of a go-to Dan Mazzarini feature, and so I've been kind of collecting it at different places through the years. These are from March. These are from the Williams-Sonoma outlet. I am equal opportunity for all of the glassware that we have, but I think I like the texture, I like the color, I like the splatter, and the way that it sort of helps decorate a table without needing to dress it formally. So cabinet number 1, cabinet number 2, glassware, etc., etc. Pick your poison, literally. What can I get you to drink? But I think for me, a lot of our stemware has been collected through the years. And so these we got at the Paris Flea Market. These are from CB2 because they break all the time. These are the, you know it, these are the Ina Garden wine glass, right? Guys, get them. They're the best. But I think we love to entertain, and our friend Steve, his dad was the head bartender at Sardi's in Manhattan for like 40 years. And so early in our tenure on the North Fork, Steve and Elizabeth would have us over. They would call when we were like driving out, and they'd say, "What's your drink order?" And so anything you could think of, Steve would try to make. And so now they come over here for sunset, and we love making cocktails together. It's just kind of part of the fun of this kitchen. Because this is a small space, I'm going to let you in on all of the secrets. I'm a strong believer. This is like a design Bible, Dan Mazzarini moment. Panel front appliances are really important. So this is our dishwasher, and this is our trash can. I feel like friends of mine are like, "Oh, you got the fancy dishwasher that doesn't look like a dishwasher." I'm like, yeah, that's what design people do. So dishwasher, trash can, big fridge. This is the funniest thing to me. Our friends were here 2 weeks ago. We've had this fridge for like 4 years. Our friends were here 2 weeks ago, and he was like, "Do you know that you have a water filter inside your door?" I did not. I did not know. And he was like, "Oh, it's the best chilled water. I can't believe you didn't know you didn't have that." So my bad, but I guess you live and learn on even home ownership sometimes. So, all right, small space living. You know it's going to happen. If we were in the city, I would open my oven and there would be sweaters inside. But here, there's white Le Creuset inside our oven. We don't have enough space for it, so someday there'll be a bigger house. But this little white seaside casita has Le Creuset in the oven that we bring out every weekend and use, and we put back in because we don't have enough cabinets. So next to our bar, and this is kind of where we make cocktails looking at the sunset, collection of things. This green lamp is from Curry & Company. It's kind of one of those things, I knew I wanted a lot of green in this house, like a mix of greens. And this lamp kind of showed up on my Instagram or my search, and it was like, that's the one. It turns out Andy loves this lamp. He's like, "I love that lamp with the weird rings on it." I'm like, great, everybody's happy. But we really do kind of use the space as a bar, and kind of like all of our mixing happens here. And the backdrop, probably splattered with cocktails through the years. This is a painting that we bought deep in the pandemic. We went to Maine because we could drive there, and it didn't really require us like being anywhere other than outside. So one of their beautiful antique stores up there, I bought these like apples. And then this is a photograph by Kim Ryerson from Robin Rice Gallery. When I worked at Ralph Lauren, we worked with the Robin Rice Gallery all the time. And Robin has a great eye, particularly, I think, for like black and white and other photography. So this is a piece that I got when I worked there. And yep, it's a butterfly, and it just seemed to kind of make sense here. So this bar setup wouldn't be complete without this little ice holder. So this is something we got at the Paris Flea Market. I'm like, it's kind of like a big bolt, which I think is cool. And so, Bolt, Joel, let's have a cocktail. I think we're kind of like in the same vein there. Last but not least, in this corner of this very small seaside casita, on top of the fridge is this other house. And so this is like the big mama. Everybody's like, "What is that?" Again, I don't know if it's for animals or birds or just a model, but everybody's like, "Did you have that made to be up there?" And the answer is no. But fancy hoarding can pay off, and it turns out it was kind of the perfect scale for on top of the fridge. So voila, that's where our little maquette lives. This is our little powder bathroom right off the kitchen. We painted all of our doors this grove green color, whether they're black, shiny black doors that we have in the city. Here, I wanted something different, a little bit cottagey, and so I painted the doors green. And as soon as I saw the paint, I was like, I love this color. So we added this board and batten to these walls, kind of redid all of this. And for me, this glossy green bathroom, whenever anybody is like at the house, they're like, "Oh, can I use the green bathroom?" And then they're like, "Oh, it's so great," because I think it's really unexpected amount of color and color in the way that we applied it. But I think a great example of how small spaces can have big impacts, particularly when you bring the right color to them. I've always been creative, I think, and I had two creative grandparents. My mom's dad always loved to illustrate, and he was not an illustrator by trade, but he always taught us to draw and would do these big caricature, like Disney cartoons on paper for my sister and I to color. And so he always encouraged creativity in us. My other grandfather was a tile setter, and so I think putting these things together, I always loved DIY. I always loved getting my hands dirty, and I think there's something about building physical space that is backdrop to how people live their lives. And so I think that combined with, I'm a kid of the 80s, like I love growing up with rom-coms. And so for me, being creative and kind of combining that with this cinematic vision of what spaces were, I think I fell in love with homes and fell in love with spaces and just sort of the dreamscape of all of that. So I actually went to school for interior design. It stuck. I have an interior design degree. But I remember before that, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was interning for my uncle, who was a doctor. And I did the whole summer, and I was in the hospital and kind of doing the whole thing. And at the end of the summer, he's like, Danny, what do you think? Do you want to be a doctor? And I said, I could be a doctor. And he said, do you want to be a doctor? And I said, I don't know. He said, let me give you some advice. Find something you like well enough that you would do it for free, and then do it well enough so that people pay you. And it was kind of this light bulb moment where I was like, I don't want to be a doctor. So I had to tell my mom I didn't want to be a doctor. She was obviously sad. But I will say I've been happy to sort of use the interior design degree that I have, built, I think, a wonderful team and company. And for me, it's a pleasure every day to be able to build spaces that are the backdrop for people's lives, no matter what kind of project it is. And it's really been the most fulfilling career path that I could have chosen for myself. My design philosophy, I think, is about crisp comfort. And so when we decorated this home, I wanted it to feel comfortable for us. We love to entertain. We both have big families. We have a lot of friends that come out. Certainly, we hope for more than the view, but we wanted it to be comfortable. And so everything here is really chosen for not really durability specifically, but to make people feel like that sense of hospitality and welcome. So we welcome wet bathing suits. We want people's glasses to be full. We want the grill on all the time. We want kids in the pool. It really has been a house that has nurtured us through some really challenging times in the world, but also helped us celebrate. We were lucky enough to throw our friend's wedding in the backyard last September. And I think it's a great example of how this house really says hospitality and welcome. So it's casual, it's crisp, it's sort of become our best version of what a seaside cottage should be. This porch actually has a great story. We've been looking at houses in this town called Bellport, and we made this insane offer deep in the pandemic on a house and didn't get it. And we came home, we were all dejected. And Andy was like, well, the thing we really loved about that house was the porch. So we just built the porch, is basically what happened here. And this room, at one point when we got the house, it was only as wide as these doors are. And we kind of tripled the size of this porch. So it's deeper and it's taller and bigger. I love this little window that we added up here. But this is kind of like the all-season, all-purpose room. We certainly dine here. We can put 8 or 10 people around this table. This becomes not really sunset viewing. This is more like summertime napping out here. But our porch is sort of the second living room that this house doesn't have. And so we really do use it almost all seasons. We have hosted Thanksgiving at this house just about every year. And without doubt, without fail, Andy's parents will be out here for appetizers. Before they're ready, but they're ready for the appetizers. And so we use this porch really all the months. A great example of durable indoor-outdoor furniture. And so teak tables, these are indoor chairs that I had painted white. Restoration table. The seating is all from the Williams-Sonoma outlet. Are you sensing my Maxinista theme here? But it's all great pieces that kind of go the distance. How we brought a little bit of spice to this room, I think, is this checkerboard rug, indoor-outdoor, and this table and that table. Now, if you're paying attention to the store, you'll be like, those are also green. Yes, these are the same green as the indoor doors in the house. And the round one in particular was our old dining table on our much smaller porch. And so second, third life for this, whatever it would be, we ended up painting this green and kind of using it at this really overscale side table on the porch. And so whether it's hurricanes or it's been used at a bar when we had a wedding at this house a couple summers ago, the porch is really the space that triples our living space. It's our second living room that we didn't have. And I think yet another good example of high-low, old-new, and a little bit of found being the right equation for us. One of the things we were looking for in this house, this version of this house, was a pool. And when you do a pool, for me, this was the most opaque process as a designer that I've ever experienced. So one day, we were leaving actually, and this dump truck is pulling up, and we're like, can we help you? This guy's like, I'm here to dig the pool. All I could think of was the movie Money Pit, where they're like, it's demo day. And I was like, oh, it's demo day, turn around, Andy, we gotta like take care of these people in the yard. So they show up and they dig this gigantic hole in our backyard and pile all of the dirt on the other side. So the view behind me was blocked by this mountain of dirt for like months without sort of understanding what the heck was gonna happen next. But the pool eventually got finished, and landscaping turns out was like the most satisfying instant gratification moment in this whole process. We wanted really mature trees, and so we have huge boxwoods out front. They're like bigger than I could reach around. And in the back, we did a privacy screen of hornbeams that were 16 feet tall. And so I look out the window one day when they're bringing in this landscape, and they have these trees on forklifts, and they're like bringing full trees like through our backyard. And I was like, is the earth moving? Are the trees moving? What the heck is happening? So net, it looked mature day one, but it was a little like, what the heck is happening in our yard in the process? So the pool, which led to the landscape and kind of all that, was not an overnight transformation, but ultimately sort of the fastest instant gratification once they rolled out the sod. While the house is great, the view is really the key feature of this house. And so for us, the North Fork, it was 6 years that we were here in Greenport before we even got on the water. Turns out the water is a totally different perspective out here. It's painterly. This house faces directly west, and so we get these incredible West Coast sunsets at night. But for us, it's really all about the view. And so as little as our seaside casita is, it's so much bigger, I think, because of all the sky and nature that we have this beautiful view of. And so the sound has been sort of the fifth character in our North Fork story. And it's been a great view and a great space to really watch the sunset and the seasons go by. Putting in a pool is the most opaque, I will say painful process that I've ever experienced as a designer, but worth it in the end. This pool, one day a crew showed up and they dug the hole, and there was just a mountain of dirt on the other side of it. And it kind of lived there as a muddy slip and slide for about 3 months. But I've never seen harder working people than the day that they came to put in the gunite. Just these like huge guys with Popeye arms, just like throwing this gunite on the side of the pool. It was kind of wild. But at the end of the day, for us, the pool is really quiet, right? It's just a rectangle with coping. We have the chairs right in the yard. And I think it's a beautiful backdrop for our view. We also, somehow this worked out. I wish I could say I planned it this way, but the sun will bounce off the pool and into the house at times of year. So you get this like painterly reflected light on the ceiling and in the whole house. It's really beautiful. When we bought the house, this was actually a much higher railing here. And it went all the way across. And I think one of the things I wanted to do was make sure that when you're sitting on the sofa, you can still see the horizon and the sunset. And so we ended up kind of studying and cutting down the railing that was here. We kind of built it as a built-in bench. And it's actually worked out great because this really makes sort of like a round conversation piece. This house is casual. This was like a really casual sort of like landscaping move that we did, but widening the stairs, lowering the railing, all this kind of was about making sure that everybody's view was like focused on like the horizon and the sunset. And so this is really our Sunset Club happy hour space that we have all our friends over, and this is where the cocktails happen for sure. How do I want people to feel when they come to our home? Honestly, I feel like My big dream is for this to feel sort of cinematic, and that, you know, they come up the stairs and the Dutch door is open and the door is open in the back and they can hear the waves down on the beach already. But all of that should also kind of be echoed by like what they smell, and dinner's cooking and candles are lit. Like, we really want this to feel like, in my phrase, like the full fantasy, right? And so whether it's Ina Garten or Nancy Meyers, or like pick your favorite sort of coastal grandma, for me, this house needs to feel like a big cashmere sweater and like the hug that you want at the top of the stairs when you go to any of your best friends' homes. This is our little primary bedroom, and it has an ensuite right there, but I think it's another great example of sort of found new and old things, high-low things coming together. And so this dresser, Andy and I found locally on the North Fork. Same with the Tramp Art mirror. I can't take credit for painting it black. It kind of came like that. But you know, these two pieces, I think, have a great sense of history. The ceramics we actually bought at the Northern Clay Center in Minneapolis. It's a ceramic studio and school that actually was Andy's first job out of school, and so we still love to support the Northern Clay Center. This dice, isn't this cute? This was a gift from my friend Steven on our team. He had it in his house, and he brought it over, and he's like, it's black and white. I think it's supposed to live here. So really sweet. Then I have, you know, things that came out of our old house. So this cabinet was between twin beds before. Paloma Contreras' lamp for visual comfort, which I think is beautiful and sort of timeless. We did this simple linen drape from Pierre Frey, and so sort of that high-low mix of things. And then one of my favorite estate sale finds, there was a art critic who had a house out here, and my friend Elizabeth and I went to this sale one morning. This crazy black and white photo, I have no idea who took it. If you're seeing this and you know, please let me know. But it is Katie Lang wearing tails. And I'm like, chef's kiss, why wouldn't I have that? And so a little bit old, a lot of new, sort of this high-low mix of designer and found pieces. This is definitely how we like to decorate, and I think a great expression of our home. I like to support artists, sort of period, end of sentence. But these baskets are a friend of mine. His name is Michael McGuire. He's Chicago-based, and I met him probably 20 years ago when I was working at Ralph Lauren. At the time, he was doing kind of these beautiful architectural illustrations. And we've just been friendly and like in touch, and we've used his work in a lot of our Mazarini & Co. projects. These are actually a series from a collaboration that we did with him. And so they're with ArtStar, and if you love them, they can be yours. But I think they're really like, it's a special thing to work with an artist and sort of bring a combined vision to life. So that's a really fun sort of way that we were able to bring his work to our house. The bed, if it looks really familiar, is Williams-Sonoma home. We use Williams-Sonoma in a lot of our projects, both residential and hospitality. And it's interesting, I think as a hotel designer, a lot of how we entertain and the simplicity of like how we make beds and how we set tables comes from our hospitality background. And so Williams-Sonoma, I think, does a great job. It certainly says seaside to me in its woven sort of seagrass sort of texture, but yeah, simple primary bedroom. This is the teeniest, tiniest primary bathroom that you'll ever see, but I think it actually is very cottage in its vibes. It's a mix of what I think are sort of high-low things that have been my favorites to use through the years. So the sink and the whole sort of marble with brass vanity legs came as a kit. I think this was also from Wayfair. But the faucet, again, we were doing this project kind of deep pandemic. The faucet is Newport brass, and I love this Astor collection that they have. I could not get unlacquered brass for like months. I went to eBay and I found the thing I wanted, still in a brand new box condition, and so got what I wanted, just sort of in a roundabout way. The tile in here is a simple glazed tile, but I always like to do sort of it, my grandfather was a tile setter, and so I always like to do an interesting layout. It's really simple. I take sort of 2 by 8 tile and I tip it up, and I do it in sort of a stacked running bomb this way. So my team will call it like the Mazzarini tile pattern, but there you go, you can use it in your house. Sort of a couple other found things, Thomas O'Brien lights, which are a go-to favorite, the Vendome light. And then this, Hadley Wiggins had a beautiful store in the North Fork for a while, and I bought this mirror in her shop. And here I actually did turn it into a medicine cabinet. And so we took an old mirror and kind of gave it new purpose, a new life by using a mirror as a medicine cabinet, and just had our contractor build the inside. This house really lives like summer camp, which I love. And so I wanted to make sure that whether it's kids or singles, that I love a pair of twin beds. Just call me old-fashioned. But this little room really lives large for our guests, I think, because we scaled everything up. And so it's also a study in things that I have found over the years. You're sensing a theme. So these beds were from a yard sale in Greenport. I didn't do a thing to them, and I think they're great. I think they've got some nice patina on them, and they're really fun. I like the scale, I like the height, and they're different than the other 6 twin beds that I have in my basement. These pieces of art actually came from Beal and Bell in Greenport as well. I bought them 8 years ago, and they're pretty big, so I didn't really have the walls for them then. So they lived in our old garage. So we would like pull our car in and it was like decorated with these pieces. But here I thought they're kind of this weird contemporary or like mod yin to this more traditional yang that we're doing in here. These little rabbits, Andy and I bought on a trip in Provincetown. They're from On Center Gallery, and the artist actually uses found materials from the ocean in making these kind of fanciful creatures, and so I thought they were kind of fun. This kind of feels like playful and spirited. Linens, we keep everything easy. You'll find if you go to Archive, which is our sort of website where it has all my favorite things, some of my favorite bedding is actually from Walmart, this really crispy percale that I love. And so these, we dress our beds kind of like we would a hotel. So white, easy, we can kind of like take care of it really easily for our guests. So these are those, and these are from Etsy, and these are from Williams-Sonoma. And so, you know, it's very attainable things that I think make our house a home. We want our guests to feel a little bit luxe, but definitely embraced by and unafraid to sort of live their vacation fantasy when they're here. So a little twin bedroom. A couple other things. This lamp was a local purchase. This table was a local purchase. This basket was a local purchase. I don't know where the heck I got this, but the name of the game is I feel like shopping local and getting special things are what make your house feel special. For me, it's really the collection of that. It's, you know, it's not about creating still lifes, but rather sort of like interesting points of view that I think make each room in our house different. This little window actually was littler before our renovation. We actually made all of the windows on the front of the house, all 4 of the windows on the front of the house align in the renovation. So very dramatic move there. But I dressed it really simply with, and then this is, I think, speaking to like a little high-low mix. This fabric is Carrie Joyce. And when I was at Ralph Lauren, I would sometimes take these beautiful stripes, and then at the bottom you can see there's a cuff where I just rotate it 90 degrees. And so beautiful Carrie Joyce fabric and kind of this like blast from the past detail on drapery. I love this little room. It's always so cozy, and I think our guests do too. Andy and I both love having our families come to visit. Andy's from Minot, North Dakota. And so as our parents have moved, we have started to inherit furniture and things from our childhoods. Cue this little green stool that was in Andy's grandparents' farm in Minot, North Dakota. I don't know what its actual intended purpose was, but for us, I just wanted to make sure it was out. I feel like things that have a story to them and things that you can even tell guests, like this was something that was in the family, it just feels special. And I'm a big believer in living with the nice things or like the antique things every day. It's just stuff. But I think it's the stuff that makes a house a home. And so for us, we want to make sure that we have those memories that we can share with people too. I like spaces and things in spaces that have stories associated with them. So like not all your furniture needs to be the provenance or the whatever, but I like things that have a story. So whether it's a table that we bought on a trip or a lamp that we bought after 2 glasses of wine at brunch one day. I think that there's a lot of why in this house. And so the soul is how it comes together, but I also think it's the process of bringing it together that, for me, brings a lot of joy along the journey to building a house. I think home means obviously more than just a space. It's the events, it's the memory making, it's the feeling, it's the lighting of the candle, it's the shaking of a martini. It's kind of the backdrop to all of life's best experiences. And it is sort of the envelope for the people that you want to bring into that along the way.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Morgan. Welcome to my family's home on the coast of North Carolina. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
My name is Morgan Hood. I'm the co-founder of Elliston House. Welcome to my family's beach home on the coast of North Carolina. This home is brand new. As of June of this year, we moved in, but there's so much history on this lot in particular. My family bought a home here that we tore down actually in 2021. We have been living on this lot since 1994, so I've grown up on this island. But this home that we are in now is new to our family, and it took a lot of labor of love. Multiple generations were involved, and we are just so thankful to be back in this lot that we call our second home. The vision for this home was just to be livable for multiple generations. I have 2 young kids. My brother is getting married next year, and the previous home that was on this lot, it didn't have multiple bedrooms for multiple generations. We needed an elevator to assist my growing parents. You know, they always like joke, who's gonna take the trash out? Who's gonna let the dog out? We're going down 3 flights of stairs. At the beach, we live on the 3rd floor. And so it was really important to have that elevator for years to come for my parents to use it. And then we also, again, just wanted an extra bedroom, a bunk room for grandchildren, just a home that would grow with our family as our family grows. I love everything about this home, but I would say 2 of my favorite things about this home, one being the sitting area. It's a funny room because it's painted coral, and my dad literally thought I lost my marbles when I told him I was going to paint a room high gloss pink, but it turned out so beautiful, and it is the room that faces the sunset, and so I knew I wanted to play off of that color palette. And I didn't want a pink room, I didn't want a red room, and I found the perfect shade of coral. So that's one of my favorite things about this home, is just sitting in that room, having a glass of champagne. Even in the morning, it's beautiful with a cup of coffee as the sun's rising over the ocean. And then my second favorite part of this home is the ground floor. We have these Adirondack chairs that look out onto the marsh with a strip of grass in front of it. My children love to like play with the fiddler crabs in the sand and jump off the dock and dig for seashells, and it's just fun to sit there in the afternoon, like 4 or 5 o'clock, and just relax. And it's so quiet and peaceful, and my children love playing back there, so I love being in that environment with them. Welcome to our foyer. This little space here was a point of contention. We were all trying to decide whether we wanted to build a more formal entry or just leave it as a ground floor sort of hidden entry, which a lot of new homes are doing down here. They aren't building 2nd floor walk-ups with formal front doors. However, I think it's old school, and I think it adds charm to a home. I feel like homes without front stairs just seem like you forgot something. So here we are in our formal entry. It's small but mighty and colorful, and we have incorporated elements from our previous home into this space. My dad was very adamant that we keep this console that was built by a Wilmington carpenter. So here it is. It actually feels like it was built for this space. It fits pretty perfectly. I incorporated a really fun and modern palette check mirror. And one of my most prized possessions, what I'm most proud of about this house, is the paint color I selected for the main areas of this home. My mother and I spent countless hours standing in the driveway in natural light, going in the shade, going in the sunlight, looking at all different types of paint colors like creamy whites, bright whites, gray whites. We landed on Sherwin-Williams Classic Light Buff, and it is perfect. Like, I wanted a creamy paint color, my mom wanted a white paint color, and so we met in the middle. and I just think it is a perfect fit for this home and this space. And I also wanted to point out the shiplap walls. We did pretty thick boards, and we carried it from the ground floor entry all the way up to the 3rd floor where you enter into the formal living. And I love the effect that it has as you continue up the 4 flights of stairs. Welcome to the area that my children play in the most. It's right off of the kids' bunk room where we can pile in like 20 kids under the age of 10. They sit here, they have a cabinet full of games, colors, board games, beads, anything you can think of, Legos, monster trucks. This is where my children live. As you can see, I have it set up for mahjong because as moms, we're always around our kids and it's important to watch them and make sure they aren't jumping off of the top bunk, if you will. So here's where the moms will play mahjong as our kids run around us. I did want to point out these chairs here. They are in Ellison House's Dover House Blue fabric with a contrast navy welt. And this other fabric over here along this wall is part of our newest collection with artist Renee Bouchon. It is our Tula and Lapis, and it is a wonderful stripe pattern with floral detailing as well. So I love incorporating different motifs into one pattern, and this really gives you that. And this fabric matches these pooky lampshades here, these wall sconces. What I did is I can actually take this off and show y'all that I scaled down the pattern. So it's the same pattern, but there's no spacing between the repeat vertically. So I just tightened up the pattern, shrunk it down like 50%, and I created the perfect lampshade pattern. Come with me into our casual living area. We brought this Miles Talbot sectional from our previous beach home. It has a sleeper sofa in it. It is sunbrella fabric covered. It can be destroyed. It can be jumped on. It can be turned into a fort. It can be whatever my children want it to be. When we were here this past summer, we had like 7 kids on this sofa, watching Frozen, eating pizza, and it was perfect. This is one of my favorite parts of the home. However, I think it's used the least. But it is a wonderful little nook to show off our Ellison House Folly wallpaper and fern, which I also designed for this beach house, and it is now in the line Perks of Having Your Own Textile Company. We have other Ellison House fabrics on this bench here. We have our Posy Verbena, which is fairly new for us. Dover House Blue again, which plays off of the game table chairs we just met and talked about. And then a newcomer for 2026. We haven't named her yet. Let me know if you have any names, but this is a new Ellison House fabric that is also in one of the bedrooms on this middle floor here. I love these wall sconces by Nikki Kehoe. They are in her color Ecru. I love the scallop detail. Anything scalloped, give it to me, gotta have it. And this photo here is very special. It is actually of Figure 8 Island. It's one of the first pieces of art my parents bought for our beach home back in the 90s. And it ties the blues, the greens, the creams all together in this space, and it's just very special to us. Here is a piece of furniture that we reused from our old home. I just took the cushions and recovered them. This is something that y'all could easily do in your own homes as well. You don't have to go out and buy new furniture. You can take what you have and recover it. This is our Posy Fern fabric. It is sunbrella. It is indestructible. It is perfect for the space with kids everywhere. And a vintage piece that I incorporated is this really cool sort of Palm Beachy Floridian coffee table from Cherish with a glass top. I love it, and I think it just grounds the space with this circular motif that it has, and the vintage elements really tie everything together so it doesn't feel so new. When we were designing these built-ins, I knew I wanted the perfect green that wasn't too hunter green, but wasn't too light green, and I found it in Coastal Plain. I love the bamboo gold pools here. We actually have a built-in refrigerator, which one day, when my children are old enough to drink beverages that don't stain things, we'll fill it with lots of goodies. And I love the detailing behind this TV, behind these shelves. The B-board really just draws your eye in, and I also love our visual comfort picture lights in antique brass. My personal style, I would call like British inspired. However, when decorating this home, I had to take into consideration my brother, whose style is, I would call like GQ modern. And my parents, who, as they have grown, their style has transitioned from like lots of antiques to now more clean lines, more transitional type of furniture. So blending all those different aesthetics was somewhat of a challenge, and meeting the needs of multiple stakeholders of this home was also difficult. However, I think we achieved a wonderful look. We have transitional pieces, we have a little bit of modern, we have a little bit of like my love for British and color and pattern, and it still feels coastal, not too stuffy, lived in and comfortable. Here we are in the bunk room. However, it wasn't always the bunk room. When we were working on the plans for this home, we went through multiple iterations of what the layout for this space would be. We have this really beautiful large window here, but it made for awkward bedding arrangements. We played with 3 twin beds along this wall. We played with a king bed along this wall. We knew we needed a space for kids, so we ultimately landed on these really great built-in bunks, which our builder did for us. I think that they just make this space super fun. However, be warned that when you do built-in bunk beds, the top bunks are not fun to make. I literally have to psych myself up, put on workout clothes, and act like I run a marathon to make these beds. So whenever my children sleep up here, I just tell them to sleep on top of the quilt, and I give them a blanket, and I call it a day. Another fun fact about this space is we have these built-in drawers for toys. Like, who knows what's in these? But they're really great for when my kids are here. They just throw all their stuff in there and I don't have to trip on it or step on it on the floor. I designed this rug with English Village Lane for this room. I love the oranges, the pinks, the blues. If you look at it next to the wallpaper, someone might say it doesn't really match. However, I think that it goes perfectly because it ties in the overall vibe, which is rust, orange, blues of any shade, a little bit of yellow. Again, you don't have to be matchy-matchy with your interior. If you like how it looks, I promise you, you will love it. This really fun retro chair here is from Cherish. I recovered it in our Cocoa Shop by Ellison House Blue Limes, which matches our wonderful wallpaper here. I knew I wanted to use this pattern and this colorway in particular when it came to this space. My parents really questioned it. My mom was like, it's too soft and girly and all over. This might be her favorite room in the house now that she's seen it live. She loves it. I really knew I wanted to tone down the space, and so here I have this amazing dresser by Modern History with brown and gold detailing and these just wooden knobs, which feel sort of retro and kind of pair with our chair here. These big lamps are from Anthropologie, and our wooden mirror here is also from Anthropologie. I think you can find anything from Anthropologie at pretty good prices. These ottomans here are from Green Row, which also is a love of mine. If you haven't heard of them, they're owned by Williams-Sonoma. They're a wonderful boutique consumer line, and you can find accessories, bedding, furniture, anything you need for your home. A funny story about this space: literally the first day we moved into this house and my children were with me, I was explaining to them how you need to be very careful about climbing up to the top bunk. A few hours later, my 4-year-old falls off the bunk. I'm like, oh great, we've got a broken arm. Luckily she didn't break her arm, but I was just like, of all the things, why do we have to do what mommy just told us not to do? So she's not allowed on the top bunk, but my 6-year-old and all of his friends love camping out up there. They love sleeping up there. And that's just a funny story. Welcome to my bedroom, as I like to call it, or the green bedroom, or the floral wallpaper bedroom. This home serves multiple generations of people, and I knew that I would be here with a lot of my family members. And when my parents are here, they sleep on the top floor in the primary bedroom, and I knew that this would be where my husband and I would sleep. And so when designing this room, I designed it how I wanted it to be and how I wanted to live in here. And I picked this wonderful green trim paint color to match our Ellison House perennial sprout wallpaper, which has been a long-time favorite of mine. It's grass cloth, it's textured, it incorporates all the colors of the beach, the greens, the blues, the creams, and pairs wonderfully with our new Posy verbena on the drapes and the Roman shade. This paint color is called Koi Pond, and it is basically what I built and designed this fabric off of. We launched this colorway based off of this trim for this room, and it's now on the line. Again, perk of having a textile business. I love these Hudson Valley leather lamps. They are leather, and the shades have a really cool stitching detail on the seam. They feel super nautical and just are somewhat unexpected and make the space. I love a plaid fabric, and this Jane Shelton plaid works so wonderfully with our perennial sprout wallpaper. It has a great Sunbrella welt. It is from Highland House. This fully upholstered bed is just a wonderful addition to this space. I also have a love of Garnet Hill bedding, and so a lot of the bedding in this home you will find is from Garnet Hill. This duvet cover is from Garnet Hill, and again ties in the blues and the greens of our wallpaper. I would love to point out our nightstands, our varnish collection. If you know Ellison House, you probably know Varnish. The two sisters who own and started Varnish Collection are really good friends of ours, and I love everything they do. They have makers in India who make all of their rattan furniture pieces. They have such a vintage feel, but are new. And so I just love these nightstands in this space. Here we are in one of our guest bedrooms. This is actually where my brother sleeps, so I knew I wasn't gonna give him a floral grass cloth wallpaper. I was gonna keep it simple, but I actually added detail with the paint. So I love using paint to bring interest to a room. I use two different tones of like an aqua blue, and I love the effect that it gives this space. I knew I had to have this rug from English Village Lane. It ties in the soft sage greens and the blues and brings in some navy. The fabrics in this room are new Ellison House, launching in spring of 2026. So we don't have names of anything yet, but I will point them out to you. This is our new stripe, which I love so much. It's going to come in 3 or 4 colorways. It's a wonderful small scale and brings so much interest to a room. It matches our Roman shades with the Samuel & Sons tape on the bottom. This print in blues and greens is also new Ellison House. It'll come in maybe 2 or 3 other colorways, TBD. Don't have a name for it, but my son lovingly calls it the dinosaur print. Can't unsee it. This art here is from one of my favorite art dealers in the UK, Atelier is the name of it. It's all online. You can go and find vintage prints, new prints, lots of different pastels and oils. I love, love, love these fish in these antique bobbin frames with the painted trim, and I think they just really add so much interest to this space. This is also a new 2026 Ellison House pattern on this bench cushion here. It'll come in 2 or 3 colorways, but it's abstract, geometric, and fun, and I think it would be great on a sofa as drapery. It just is unique and different and something that Allie and I are very excited about. On our way to the middle floor of this beach home, I wanted to point out these sconces. The shades are covered in our Ellison House Deladot Marine, which also is present in our upstairs living room. I love a pattern shade, as I've mentioned before, and I think they just add an element of fun and surprise as you're coming up and down the stairs, which we do often at a beach house. Here we are in our wet bar. And one of the things that I first pulled when I was designing this beach house is this incredible seashell wallpaper by John Darien. I have fallen in love with it, and it just, again, makes the space and ties the whole house together. My whole color scheme was basically built off of this wallpaper, and I can't get enough of it every time I see it. Some elements of this bar that I wanted to point out is here is a wonderful piece of art by Mary McGuire, and this special little piece of art means so much to me. My husband and I were actually married on this island. We had our first look on this lot, and my step aunt drew this for me and mailed it to me after our wedding on our anniversary, and it is a figure 8 island, which is where we are, and I will just forever cherish this piece of art. Again, this island means so much to me and my family, and we are so blessed to be here. Some glassware that I love, and I don't have anything super special, but I do love Anthropologie glassware, which anyone and everyone can get. These are amazing little wine cups, and I love these fun juice glasses. They come in lots of different motifs, so we have lobsters. They need to have crabs for this house. I would get like 8 crab glasses, but I found lobsters and fish. And we have lemons and limes and avocados. And here are our crab glasses. Welcome to our puzzle table. As you can see, I have been working on our seashell puzzle that matches our wet bar wallpaper. When we first moved into this house in June of this year, we had someone gift us this, which I love because, again, it matches our wet bar wallpaper. It is a very hard puzzle. It's taken me multiple days to just design and put together like 5 shells. But I also wanted to point out these game table chairs here. They are from Highland House, and they are in our new Ellison House by Renee Bouchon collection fabric called Kipsy. And I love this fabric because it feels unexpected, especially for Ellison House. But Renee does these wonderful like collage, abstract, modern works of art. And we scanned in her art digitally and developed patterns off of them. And this is what we came up with. It comes in one colorway, and it just feels unexpected and fun. And now I would love for you to come with me into our formal living room. I say formal, it's not really that formal. We're at a beach house. It's casual and fun, and all the fabrics are performance. So you can get on here with your wet sneakers and your glass of wine. I love this chair here. These matching chairs are in Ellison House. Our pattern is Flora Cobalt, which pairs so wonderful with our Della Dot Marine here, and these lumbar pillows, which also matches these stools. I have a thing for Highland House furniture, and everything you see here is from Highland House, except for this wicker table, which is mainly baskets, who I also love. This lampshade is Elliston House. It is from our Cocoa Shop collaboration, and it is our blue limes fabric, and it's pleated, and it's so precious and pairs wonderfully with these plaid pillows. And this brown coffee table just grounds the space, and it literally hides anything and everything, and my kids can stand on it and jump up and down, and it's perfect. My family would be sad if I didn't show y'all our crab. This handmade crab has been at this place on this island on this lot for 30 years and just represents all of our memories we've had down here. Again, this is called the Crab House, and so we have little crabs everywhere, but this guy has been with us for a long time. Here we are in our kitchen, and as you can see, we have incorporated some modern elements which make this upstairs space of this home feel fresh and new. And we have overlay cabinetry with modern panels, so there are no sort of details along the edges. We have these wonderful polished nickel knobs and hardware. And I particularly love that the island is stained wood, and how that flows with the flooring is beautiful. I love these bar stools by Dorman Designs. They're actually in Ellison House fabric, shocker, and trellis marine. And what I've done here is I have laminated them so my children cannot destroy them. Pro tip, always laminate your kitchen bar stool fabric. It will last you forever. You can wipe them clean. Your children can't destroy them. I love this custom vent hood we have here. It really ties in the tongue and groove that's throughout this house, in the foyer and on the ceiling in the primary bedroom. This wolf range was a hot topic debate amongst all the stakeholders of this home, but I'm so happy we did it. We separated our oven along this wall with our range here, and I think this was a great move. Probably the most important thing in this kitchen is I drove all over the state of North Carolina to find the perfect marble countertops, and my parents didn't really love the idea of marble. My brother could care less, but I knew I wanted Danby marble, and I searched high and low, and I finally found it in Raleigh, and I had our builder go pick it up and bring it back here to Wilmington, North Carolina to a fabricator, and it is the perfect marble for this space. It has so much movement and greens and blues, and it's really held up super well. It's honed with an eased edge. And I know people are scared of marble. My mom particularly was terrified of marble. But if you're gentle with it and you're not super uptight about it, it will be your favorite thing in your house. A lot of people do hanging pendants above their island. However, I did not want to block our views, and I knew when we get to the dining room that I had to have these lanterns from Hudson Valley over our dining table. And since these spaces are open and adjoining, I wanted a big flush mount that made a statement. And these visual comfort flush mounts in antique brass are huge and perfect and awesome, and I want them in my own primary residence. But I just think that they are fantastic and modern, but also have kind of an old world feel to them thanks to the finish. So we are here in our casual dining area. With my job, which is Elliston House, I've spent a lot of time over the last few years in Market Square in High Point, twice a year at High Point Market. And thanks to that, I've been able to walk by Hudson Valley Lighting every morning and every afternoon on our way in and out of High Point Market. And I saw these lanterns a few years ago, and I know exactly where they had to go, which was in this house above the dining table. And I'm obsessed with them. I think the color, which is like this creamy, kind of fair and ball matchstick paint color, if you will, is just fantastic. And the arched glass at the top is beautiful. I love that you can still get inside and clean the glass. They just make this space. I love this table from Highland House. It feels casual, but not too farmhouse, not too modern. It's the perfect beach house dining table, and it wouldn't be a beach house without pallet check. So I have these wonderful pallet check dining chairs and some umbrella, and the back is woven, and I love just the natural elements that come together at this dining table. And lastly, what really makes this space is this alligator by Mary McGuire, which was originally hanging hidden in our butler's pantry along a back wall, and no one saw it ever. And it's another High Point Market find. When I saw it, I knew I had to have it. We recently just moved it to this wall, and I just smile every time I walk past it. Tearing a house down and rebuilding a new house on the same lot comes with challenges. My family and I joke that we actually basically rebuilt the same house because we knew what we liked, we knew how we lived, we knew what we wanted. We just added a bedroom and an elevator and called it a day. So the floor plan of this house is very similar to the house we lived in for 30 years. The one thing that is different is that we added this triple slider because we knew we wanted our upstairs living space to feel like you could live inside and outside without having to constantly go through doorways. And what's really amazing about this is that all these two doors push all the way back to this third door. So you have double wide sliding door entry in and out. You can slide them this way, you can slide them that way. And it just makes this home live larger, live more coastal. You feel the breeze, which is why everyone lives on the third floor at the beach. It's because you get the breeze. There are no bugs. It's wonderful and relaxing, and we're just very thankful we all agreed to do this triple slider. Here we are on our back deck, which is where we all live. This deck was actually somewhat difficult to design for a large family. I have children. My parents are using this house. My brother is using this house. He's getting married next year. Hopefully they will have children. So we knew we needed outdoor seating for a lot of people. The unfortunate thing is that this deck isn't very deep. And so we could only really fit settee furniture as opposed to sofas. However, I think we achieved enough seating where you can pull in some stools for inside. We can all sit out here. We can watch the sunrise. We can watch the sunset. And it's just a very peaceful place to sit. I did want to point out that Elliston House did a collaboration with Sunbrella. And so we have indoor-outdoor performance fabrics that resist UV rays, that are stain-proof, spill-proof. You can blot anything up that's liquid. We have our Thornton Mist here in this pillow. And we have our Arlo multi-pillow, which is a fun, like geometric kind of retro feel. I love it. It's unexpected for Elliston House. I love the colors. We have guava, We have this wonderful citrine lime and soft blues. And now we're gonna head into our outdoor dining space, which is really where we spend most of our time. Most of our evenings are spent out here eating. It's wonderful for my young children to be out here spilling all their things and running around on the deck. We knew when we built this house, we wanted Ipe decking because at our previous home, there were so many splinters and so many nails, and we knew we were gonna spend the money to have this really nice flooring. And I'm telling you, it's like walking on butter. It's the best thing we've done. This dining area by Lexington Home Brands, we found locally at Furnitureland South off of Greensboro, in between Greensboro and High Point. And it has a really cute umbrella fabric on the chairs here. We have my mom's old Vietri dishware on the table, some new napkins, some Anthropologie and Crate and Barrel glassware. And it's just awesome to sit out here and watch the children play in the water. What's really fun about this is we have a blue heron that lives on our cove, and my parents have called him Grumpy because he just squawks all the time. So in the mornings and the afternoons, Grumpy, oh, he's actually on our dock right now. He likes to stand on the dock, and he just like lives really in this area, and he's always flying around and yelling and squawking and making noise. And Grumpy's like our best friend that we didn't know we needed. I worked for my family's business, which is packaging distribution, for 9 years outside of college. I ran marketing, event planning, I helped with sales. And then after the birth of my second child, I kind of got this itch where, you know, I want to do something for myself, something creative, something that I was passionate about. And I wouldn't say I was one of those kids growing up who always like loved interiors and loved design and loved art and loved color. However, looking back, I realized that I was surrounded by all of that. My parents loved antiques from a young age. They kept a neat and tidy home. They cared about how their home felt and looked. My aunt on my dad's side was an interior designer, and my aunt on my mom's side worked in the fashion industry for 30 plus years in New York. And so I was surrounded by people who cared about homemaking and who cared about fashion and color. And I think, you know, that's kind of always been inside of me. And once I met my business partner, Allie Holderness, she really pushed me to take the leap to start this business. And I left my family's business, went into interior design, and worked for a designer for about 14, 15 months. And then Allie and I took the leap to start Alliston House. Here we are in the sitting room or the coffee room or the martini room, whatever you want to call it. But this is probably my favorite room in this house, and a lot of that has to do with the paint color. I spent a lot of time on this paint color. I didn't want it to be pink. I didn't want it to be red. I wanted it to be a room where my brother and my dad and my husband love to come in as much as my mom and I do. And so we use Constant Coral, I think it's the name, by Sherwin-Williams, and also incorporated a lot of new pieces as well as vintage pieces. So this series of birds here is from Cherish, and so I framed them in this wonderful, wonderful burlwood frame bridge frame. These bunching coffee tables are also from Cherish. I have a love for Cherish. I love them because you can move them around. If you're sitting over here and you want a table to your left, you can slide one up. If you want to prop your feet up, you can put your feet on them. They're a wonderful addition to this room. At my feet here, which also I think makes this space, is a custom rug that I designed with English Village Lane. I hand-picked and placed all of the colors of this rug, and it just ties the entire room together. This is a wonderful little side chair by Taylor King. I love this channel back here with the tufted buttons. I think it's unexpected and fun. And this chair has been a love of mine since I saw it at High Point Market when I first got into interior design about 4 years ago. It is from Highland House. Again, I love the channel back, the tufted. The fabric I picked is a wonderful cravat fabric, and this welt is a wonderful leather, like aqua blue. And a leather welt is just chef's kiss. And I would be remiss if I did not point out the Alliston House fabric in this room. This is a new colorway of our sparrow, and it's called Sea Salt, hence where we are, the salt air, the sea. I actually designed it for this space, and then we ended up putting it in the line. And so I love the colorway. I love the coral in it, which ties in wonderfully with the paint color. I love the green. I love the blue. I love the brown and the bird. It's just wonderful and coordinates with our Roman shade over here on these front windows. Continuing my love of wicker and rattan, we have this wonderful Arteriors floor lamp here and this Manly Baskets side table. And this custom piece of art by Lauren Kaczmarek. She's a Wilmington artist, so local, and she designed and painted this art for this space in particular. Another Allison House pattern that is in this space is our Echo Mocha fabric. I love this pattern. It is a small scale geometric and can go literally anywhere. And I think the brown really just grounds this space and prevents it from being too girly or too feminine. And lastly, wanted to point out one of my favorite visual comfort table lamps right here in this green, which feels somewhat unexpected. You know, people think green and pink, kind of Christmassy colors, but I think the coral wall and this mid-tone green play so well together. And can't forget this brown Fermois shade from the Charlottesville Shade Shop. What really stands out in this bathroom to me, and what I knew I wanted to do from the beginning of the build of this home, was use our Dover sand wallpaper from Allison House. And I actually customized the ground, so I added dots into the ground, which if you're familiar with Allison House, you will know that our Dover House Blue colorway has green dots in the ground. And this Dover sand does not, but I think we should add the dots into the Dover sand and keep it in the line because it's so good and it just adds another interesting element to the already amazing kind of abstract wallpaper. I love this rattan mirror from Anthropologie. I think rattan in any room is like a must for me. It brings in such wonderful texture. Again, here I've mixed metals. I have a polished nickel faucet and a visual comfort light in antique gold. From our old house, which was on this lot, we brought in a lot of furniture and art, and these 3 pieces of art here were hanging in our previous home, and they work super well here, and I'm glad I have found a home for them. Did want to point out that when my parents bought a house on this island in 1994, my grandparents had a home on the north end of the island, and they had dubbed that home the Fish House because it was on the inlet, and there was lots of fish, lots of fishing going on up there. And when my parents purchased this home, we have called it the Crab House. So you will see crab motifs throughout. There are tons of fiddler crabs off our dock. We love catching blue crabs and just playing with the crabs in the sand. And so here we have art of our crabs. And I love a open sink here. We had discussed covering it with a sink skirt, but I think having the exposed leg and under plumbing is beautiful. And lastly, I wanted to point out the applique towels from Wheezy Towels with our monogram on them. I love the blue, I love the pink and the tan and the green, and I think they just make this space feel homey. So I love buying art and anywhere I go. And I wanted to point out these 2 pieces of art. This piece of art here, the sailboats, actually came from the same antique store in Greensboro that I always go to, Carriage House, but when I bought it, I actually met the painter himself, and it turns out that he is the father of someone who goes to church with us. So that was lovely to meet him as I was buying his work of art. He was so thrilled. And then this top piece here I found at Round Top, Texas when I went the past few months with my business partner, Allie. I love a coastal scene. I love the antique frame. I love the hint of blue and red in there and orange. And I think these 2 pieces are super complementary and just make the space feel curated. Welcome to the primary bedroom. This is the bedroom on the top floor at this house, and it is actually a wonderful place to sleep with all the blues and the tans and the browns. It really pulls in the outside. You can see outside this sliding door here, and really just feels beachy and calm and safe and secure. And I love this bedroom. I want to point out some fun things with regards to Allison House. So these 2 benches here are our new collection with artist Renee Bouchon, and this is the Marbella Sea fabric, which also matches the bolster on the bed. I love a plaid. This is a wonderful Schumacher plaid, and this stout stripe fabric on the shams. I love a fabric lampshade. These are from Moi, from the Shade Shop in Charlottesville. Really just ties in this lovely ceramic Hudson Valley lamp. These Roman shades are actually all hardwired, and so they can all come down together. They can come down individually, and that was super important for this room because, as you can see, there are so many windows. The sun literally rises over here over the ocean, and so in the morning it's very bright, and we have Romans, and behind them we have rollers to help block out the sun. This painting here is a painting of two of my childhood best friends, myself and my brother, and this was done just behind us at the beach here by a family friend, and it actually came from the previous house that was on this lot, from the primary bedroom, and is now in this primary bedroom. And it ties in the colors of the entire home perfectly. Blues, a little bit of coral, a little bit of teal, some creams, and it's just a very special piece by Greensboro artist Denise Landy Dodge. Would love to talk about the ceiling. We have a shiplap ceiling here that just really elevates the space and makes the room feel larger. I also love it paired with the grass cloth. There's so much texture going on and just reminds me of the beach and the sand between my toes. Another thing I wanted to point out, our collaboration with Renee Bouchon on our Ellison House fabric here is really tied all together with the art above the bed. This is also by Renee Bouchon. Her florals are everything, and as you can see, we selected them for our textile collection with her, and they just tie the whole space together with the color and just to make everything feel super cohesive. Welcome to the primary bathroom. There are some elements I want to point out to y'all that are super special to us. As I mentioned previously, this home is for multiple generations, which means multiple different taste levels and interests. And the people who use this room the most are my parents, and they love clean lines, but I love antiques and natural elements. And so you can see a little combination of both of those different aesthetics here. The vanity is very fresh and new, and I love the reeded detail and the big brass knobs. And then where my taste comes in is we have a lot of antique elements here. So this table and this chair both came from an antique store in Greensboro, North Carolina, where my primary residence is. The antique store is called Carriage House, and I recovered this sweet bamboo chair in our Ellison House Flora putty fabric. And I recently went to High Point Market and found this wonderful antique Turkish rug. That's a runner for the bathroom. This bathroom actually feels very cold, and so I really wanted to bring in some warmth and ground the space from like echoes and things that were happening in the stairwell just behind our vanity here. And this runner really helps to do both of those things, prevent the sound from echoing and ground the space and add in warmth. I also wanted to point out another Ellison House fabric in here. This is our Laurel putty with a wonderful fringe down the leading edge from Fringe Market. I love that tassel bell fringe. It's so chunky and just adds interest. I love Mary McGuire. You will see her art throughout this home, but these two ships in the round antique gold frame draw the eye up and really emphasize the tall ceilings. I also want to point out these wonderful custom mirrors by Floor. These are painted in a custom Benjamin Moore paint color and bring some kind of femininity to the space that my dad still loves. And we also have our cafe curtain here and the matching Laurel putty with our floor-to-ceiling drapes. I fell in love with this wallpaper by Nina Campbell, who is a British designer. It brings in all of the color palettes that we've used in the primary bedroom, which is adjacent to this primary bathroom. We have our taupes and our like aqua teal blue color. And I love a stripe. My parents love a stripe. It was a win-win. And so I just love that in this space. And I also wanted to point out, I know a lot of people, especially consumers, are scared to mix metals, but I have done that here and I think I've done it fairly successfully. We have our polished nickel fixtures here at the sink and our antique brass knobs, and they play really well together and are complementary. And so I think there are no rules. Have fun mixing metals, and if you love it, it'll work. Home means a place where I find people that I love, where people that I love find comfort, and we can sit down at the end of the day and just relax. Nothing that feels too uptight. I want a place where my kids feel safe and secure, and our family just thrives, and my husband loves coming home at the end of the day. Bye, Homeworthy. Thank you so much for joining me in our new beach home. I'm so grateful for you all, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. It is super sunny here in North Carolina, and it's time for me to go on a walk.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Casey Hill and welcome to my home in Newport Beach.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. I'm Allison Kenworthy, the founder of Homeworthy, and we take you inside the world's most beautifully decorated homes and introduce you to the brilliant people who live there.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Liz Lang. Welcome to Grey Gardens.
Click the join button below to access all of our latest episodes ad-free and watch extended cuts of this and other homes, opening the doors to new rooms and exclusive content featuring our beloved hosts.
I can't wait to see. I'm so excited.
And if you're looking to shop items inspired by this and other Homeworthy tastemakers, be sure to use the product links below or scan the QR code on screen to find fabulous furniture, coffee table books, and accessories that can transform your house into a home.
Hi, I'm Casey Hill. I'm an interior designer. Welcome to my home in Newport Beach, California. Finding this home was really special. It was definitely a family undertaking. And my brother found the home, and it was a beautiful 1940s bungalow that had not been touched, so it needed a lot of work, but the bones were there and the character was there. And I have 2 young children, and I felt as though when I walked in that this home could be really special for our family to grow into. And it was essentially what brought me back to living in Newport Beach. When I first laid eyes on this home, it was definitely overgrown in the landscape, had not been touched in probably 60 plus years. The owner who had already passed away but was selling the home came home from World War II and built it with a friend of his, and his wife passed away in it, and their family was showing the home. So when I walked in, it again had not been touched, but it was really beautiful in the sense that it hadn't been touched. To me, that's what drew me to the home, and the really cool touches like the sunken living room and the large lot where it hadn't been overexpanded, and the kind of nice flow of space, and it wasn't, too large, and it had a great set of rooms. And I felt when I walked in that this would be something that I could keep the character of, but at the same time also completely renovate the kitchens and bathrooms and bring up to date, because they had not been touched in probably 70 years. This is the living room at Surf Shack. A lot of the pieces have been collected over time. For instance, this Geoponte coffee table I purchased when we moved into the home from a local store in Newport Beach called Amarie's. This is a piece that Nikki Kehoe just came out with right as we were installing. These cool Finnish coffee tables are designed by a Finnish designer from the 60s that I purchased in a vintage shop down in Palm Springs. This vintage armchair I bought at Nikki Kehoe, already recovered. The Danish floor lamp from the 40s I bought at Obsolete in Los Angeles, along with this wooden hexagonal fixture, I believe also from Denmark in the 40s. The pair of French rattan chairs I bought in Round Top about 5 years ago and kept in storage. These cool stacking trays that I love to use as a side table are from KRB and made by the Lacquer Company. This is a piece by Cecily Brown that is an early works on paper that I bought about 6 years ago. She's now blown up, and I'm so grateful that I found a piece that was relatively affordable way back when. This piece is done by an artist named Chris Gwaltney, who's a local artist from Laguna Beach. And these two pieces are by this Korean artist, Minko Kim, whom I found in New York City and visited his studio in Brooklyn. These two pieces are done by Laura Waldusky, a British artist who does colored pencil on gesso. And then I had custom framed in a frame that kind of matches some other red tones throughout the home. Speaking of red tones, I found these cool rattan chairs and had them sprayed a beautiful tomato red. I thought it would be a fun pop of color against the floors, which are painted a Pharaoh and Ball drop cloth color. This vintage dining table I bought years ago from Nikki Kehoe, and then the chandelier hanging above is a reproduction piece from Woven. The wall sconces are from Obsolete. They're also reproduction, which they currently make based on an Italian version from the 60s. And the shades are a custom paint color that I requested. The floors when we purchased the home were like a dark oak, and I felt like they needed to be painted in order to bring light in and kind of make it feel really fresh and young and fun. So I painted them a Pharaoh and Ball color called Drop Cloth, which is this kind of beautiful taupey color that isn't white, but it also isn't brown or beige, and it has a lot of depth to it. The trim is also a Pharaoh and Ball color called Pigeon, which is kind of this go-between green and blue. And I had so much fun collecting pieces for this home, whether it was from the vintage of the home, which is the 40s, but we also looked at pieces from the 20s and 30s, as well as 70s and even 80s. And I think finding the pieces was something that I really sunk my teeth into, whether it was decorative lighting or side tables or cool sculpture. It was really something that I had so much fun doing. In thinking about the entry of the home, I knew we needed a place to set down keys, and I had this kind of old French butcher's table that I found at an antique shop in Santa Barbara in storage, which I placed here. And then this cool sculpture, although looks like Calder, is definitely a knockoff from a vintage shop in Palm Springs for about, I would say a tenth of the price of what you could buy a Calder for today, or far less. In thinking about styling this house, I wanted it to be casually curated, layered, and also felt lived in and appropriate for a young family. There was a stylist named Lisa Rowe, who I work with often on photo shoots, who helped come in and work with me when I installed the house. She definitely found a collection of beautiful art books that she brought with her, as well as decorative objects. Pieces that I had collected for years, including this mushroom, beautiful table lamp, and a celadon green, along with, I would say, these gorgeous hurricanes, which I probably had for 12 years and registered for when I got married. They're from William Yoward. Something that I found recently is this interesting sculptural work by, I don't even know the artist, but I bought him at Ken Folk, and I was really drawn to this old glass cloche. I ended up in the world of design through some great mentors. In my last year of undergrad at USC, I started working with Suzanne Reinstein, the famed designer in Los Angeles, and she was so kind in taking me under and mentoring me in the world of the decorative arts and design. I quickly kind of pivoted from fashion to interior design and worked for her for a few years, at which point I moved to New York and worked for the decorator Markham Roberts for 8 years. and then went back to school to New Orleans and got my master's in architecture from Tulane University. I quickly thought that perhaps I wanted to work in architecture, and I worked for a firm, Olson Kundig, based in Seattle for a few years, and then realized I did not want to be an architect, and opened my own studio in 2018 in Los Angeles. Follow me down into the sunken living room, which we've nicknamed the Pirate's Den. This is a room that my kids and I gather in daily, morning and night, and whether we're watching movies or drinking some wine by the fire, we live in this room. In designing this space, I didn't change a lot. I left the brick, painted it, and then definitely repaneled this wall and painted it that pigeon color to match the existing trim. We did a custom built-in bookcase that housed not only books, a collection of books and ceramics, and little artifacts, but also the TV. I didn't want the TV to be something that was on display and that you saw when you walked into the home. And I needed to find a way, because this home is so small, to kind of hide it and procure it where you didn't see it as an object that was readily available. In thinking about the furnishings for this room, I wanted them to be appropriately scaled, so I designed a custom sectional sofa that was less depth than normal and covered it in a rose tarlo perennials fabric, which in case the kids did spill something on, we could wipe up easily. I purchased the rug and coffee table from Nikki Kehoe, and the light fixture is vintage 1960s from Italy, purchased from Pearson Ward. This cozy armchair I had found at Round Top years ago and covered in a Les Indiennes fabric. And then the artwork on the wall is a photograph by an artist, Laura Russin. The fireplace was existing when we purchased the home. All I had to do was refinish the copper hood. I have to say, this fireplace is on morning and night, whether it's winter or summer. I'm typically drinking a cup of coffee here in the morning and enjoying a glass of wine in the evening. So the bar area and kitchen are the biggest things we renovated at the Surf Shack. I love to entertain, and I wanted somewhere where I could just always have cocktails readily available. So the bar area is stocked with that, as well as this cool lamp that I found, French 1940s, and then these beautiful plates I started collecting from a local LA artist named Rachel Polly, and decided I want to display them on the back wall to give some character. My favorite barware I've bought recently is from Meg Turner in Los Angeles, and I keep collecting. She has a few different colors, so it's pretty fun. This area I knew that the kids would have breakfast in daily, so I found this cool 1940s French table from William Lehman in Montecito, and found these cool stools. They called them the butternut stools, and custom colored them with a blue leg. We redid this whole picture frame window and allowed this to open up and look at the garden, as well as put in this Dutch door. The kitchen had not been touched since the 40s, so it needed a lot of work. And I gutted everything and allowed for more light to come in through the Dutch door, as well as the window above the sink. In thinking about the cabinetry, I needed a place to house most everything. I didn't love things on the counter. In choosing the counter material, I picked a soapstone, which I feel like not only is beautiful, but durable. And then the backsplash is a hand molded tile that I purchased from a local vendor, Concept Studio. I definitely wanted a pop of color, so I found this small range from Smeg in the tomato red that definitely did that and achieved the pop of color we needed in the kitchen. The sconces I purchased for both kitchen and bar are from Duval in the UK. And then this rug I found at Jamal's, a great rug dealer if you haven't been, on La Cienega in Los Angeles. I would describe my own style as something that's always changing and growing, but definitely rooted in traditionalism with a lot of whimsy and kind of fun colors and patterns and bold, I think, moves in the sense of a collection from, you know, I would say something from the 30s, 40s, 50s to, you know, something that's a reproduction piece mixed in today. I really try and look at the context and the environment and where the home is when I start designing. And I also look at how the family or the individual wants to live in the home and really listen to them and understand how they're going to use this space, whether or not they're big entertainers or cooks, or do they have big families, and really try and design a space that is very much a reflection of my clients. This is Delphine's room, my daughter, who's 7 years old, and the walls we papered in a beautiful Adelphi paper. I've had this bed since I was in college, and so I knew that it needed a spot in her room. I kind of collected a few pieces of artwork and things to allow this kind of like fun bird's nest mushroom vibe come together. These cool sculptures above her bed are from an artist, Christopher Touchwell, and they're all bronze, little nests and little twigs. And then these cool prints I found in a book and had them mounted and framed. We started collecting kind of wooden mushrooms for her room and some fellow animals to give it some life and kind of some fun and whimsy. My daughter is a good client. She is definitely someone that agrees to most ideas I have, which is so nice. Oh, the ceiling light is super cool. I bought it from Liz's Antique Hardware in Los Angeles, and I think it cost like $20. It's like the best kind of cheap and cheerful purchase you could buy. I would say hot takes on color schemes for kid rooms are embracing color, but also keeping it kind of unexpected. Like, I think the fact that Delphine's room has this really strong blue, you know, kind of character going on with a little pop of orange, I think is more different and unexpected in a girl's room than it could be a boy's room. So I think that's kind of a fun way to really dive into color for kids, but also not have it be so like status quo. This little, it's called a bedroom chair. And when I was 20, living in New York City, I went to the oh God, what is it? The John Rosselli sale. And I was making very little money, but I bought it and I've carried it with me to every apartment and home I've had since I was probably 24 years old. And then recovered it in a Claremont ticking fabric for Delphine. Oh my goodness, being my own client might have been the hardest job I'd ever done. It was something that I took on, and it was hard for someone that I feel like is so easy and quick to make a decision. This was the first time in my life that I just definitely second guessed myself. I think it's also tough when you're spending your own money. Like, I had to really, really hunt and pick and choose and think about priorities versus just, you know, going all in, because it being my own home, I couldn't do everything I wanted to do. So this was something that I had to think about as long-term goals and really prioritize what was necessary for my family at this time. And I think that really kind of catered to what I was able to do in regards to the renovation. Let me take you into Fritz's bedroom. When we moved in, Fritz was just turning 4 years old, so I wanted the room to feel boyish, but also something he could grow into. I wallpapered the walls kind of in a ticking stripe, and then my parents built this bed, this custom tugboat bed for my brothers, which he then passed down to my son Fritz. And we kind of incorporated some found artwork from antique shops in Santa Barbara and upstate New York, as well as some kind of fun beachy items like this rope-covered surfboard, which I bought at Meat Gallery in Montecito, as well as this kind of fun chair, which is vintage 40s and Danish. Then I found this cool, I call it like a trick-track bookcase, in the sense that you can open it from all sides, but I thought it was a great way for him to have adequate storage for toys and yet at the same time look cool. When people walk into the home, they always say very early on how warm and welcoming it feels, and that to me is just like the biggest compliment. I, of all people, want people to feel so comfortable and at ease in my own home. And I love to entertain, and I usually have a fire going, and I want people to linger and stay for drinks, or whether it's, coming in after a long day's work or staying late at night in the garden and listening to music. I really want to provide a space that people enjoy being at and stay for a while. So my son's room is actually connected to my bedroom in the way that an old shotgun was designed in New Orleans. So I thought that was kind of cool when I was first walked into this house. In the primary bedroom, I first had to completely open it up to the exterior. There was very little light, so I added these doors, which not only allow for so much more light, but also a beautiful cross breeze and this cool connection between the kitchen and bedroom in regards to the exterior deck. So in designing this bedroom, I had to immediately kind of shrink in the room a little bit to allow for a proper bathroom, and then add these built-in closets to allow for any sort of storage. In thinking about the paint colors for my bedroom, I wanted them to be serene, but also have some depth and interest. So I chose a Faro and Ball lime white color for the walls, and then also a French gray color for the trim, which is this kind of beautiful molding of green and gray, and also a little blue undertone. I designed a custom bed with a fun fabric that allowed for a little pop of color with some hints of pale pinks thrown throughout. So I recovered this gorgeous vintage bench, which I bought in Round Top. It's from the 60s, Italian. And then I also purchased a watercolor from a great artist I love in upstate New York, Mary Nelson Sinclair. I wanted different bedside tables, so one was a found piece, an old demi-lune French from the late 18th century, and then the second was something kind of more contemporary and cool, being this lacquered piece from the Lacquer Company. And I had this chest of drawers for a while, so it came in perfectly when I needed a spot to house additional clothing and keepsakes. The light fixture I found at a vintage shop in LA and kind of had to retrofit to make it a ceiling fixture. And then the pair of table lamps I found at Nikki Kehoe, and they're French 1950s. The bathroom when we purchased the home was a tiny, poor excuse for a primary bathroom. So we shortened the room and allowed this bathroom to be much larger. And in thinking about that, I had never had a large bathroom before and was so excited about making it special. So I picked a limestone picket for the floors and then found this gorgeous kind of celadon green hand-molded tile for the walls. My only regret is that I didn't tile the ceiling. I then designed this vanity and painted it kind of a blush pink color, Faro and Ball setting plaster, and then again used limestone on the vanity top. All the plumbing fixtures are Waterworks Highgate, and then I sourced this vintage Italian mirror from Italy, as well as found these kind of old rattan sconces from a dealer in Montecito. Being a native Californian, I hope this home evokes a California sense of style. I nicknamed it Surf Shack in the sense that it's kind of an old beach bungalow shack from the 1940s that was renovated to be a reflection of how you live today, but at the same time, preserve the charm and craftsmanship from when it was built. And I truly believe that that is something that I would say is quintessential California. I would say my favorite thing about the home is the sunken living room that was here when we purchased it. We nicknamed it the Pirate's Den, and the fireplace was existing. All we did was repaneled the walls and provide like a built-in bookcase, TV niche area, and the kids and I live in this room. The fire's always going, and whether it's coffee in the morning or red wine in the evening, we live in this space. So when we first looked at the home, the garden was so overgrown, you couldn't even walk outside. I immediately knew that I wanted this space to feel open and just a place that you had outdoor dinner parties and long chats by the fire pit. So I drove a bulldozer through the whole thing, quickly designed an outdoor deck made of ipe, and then kind of thought about it in terms of dining area and a kids special dining area, and then the outdoor fire pit. We did leave some existing fruit trees, both being an orange and a plum, and then everything else we brought in. So this cool acacia tree I saw when I was up in San Francisco, an oak that's definitely trying to survive and is gonna take a long time to grow. In putting together the variety of plants we placed in the garden, I wanted it to feel very whimsical and wild, not precious and not kind of really tight. So this landscape designer and I, who I worked with, really, I think, achieved that, but also allowed it to feel very casual and lived in. Come in to our little laundry room / potting shed. When I purchased the home, this was just a shed that I immediately knew we could turn into a laundry potting shed, and it brings me joy, I have to say. I enjoy being out here, and I'm still trying to learn the art of gardening, but that'll come over time. I placed soapstone on the countertops, again, for kind of beauty and durability, and then found a really cool copper sink and brass taps from Duval in the UK. I would say what gives a home soul are the people living in it, and also the pieces that have been collected through travel, through a love of art, through, something as simple as kids' artwork hanging on the wall. But I truly believe a home is a collection of its people and the things that make those people, shall I say, tick. Home to me means a safe space where my family and I never want to leave. And I feel like this home has provided that. For the first time in my life, I typically am out on the town or having dinners with friends every night of the week. And when I moved in here, I quickly became a homebody. And that's, I think, the sign of a loving home.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.